He ended up in a martial world and became the fiancé of the powerful empress. Dreaming of a peaceful life by her side, he bets everything on this union, but he unintentionally ends up angering the empress. And to test his fidelity, the empress then hatches a curious plan. She sends her best friend to seduce him. Will he resist? And the empress, does she really want him to fail, or is she just confused? Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy it. In the continent Chen Yuan, the force marshal is what really matters and decides everything over there. The artist's martial evolve through 9 levels, becoming stronger at each step that they take. They say that an artist martial of 9th level can turn the heavens and fight against 10,000 men without losing. Still thus, in the Estado Oriental exists a nation so strong that nobody dares provoke the Imperio Martial. For the Imperio Martial is the home of the most young artist martial of 9th level of the history, the Empress Wu Xin. However, this powerful Empress Martial hides a secret interesting about her life personal. This extraordinarily powerful Empress Martial also by chance is the fiancée of our protagonist. She is the Empress Martial of the Imperio Martial known as Wu Xin and seems a little embarrassed. Suddenly an official complains indignant about such behavior in the court, and that is an absurdity. Jia Renyi, an official of the Imperial Martial, demands that the prince consort Wen Ming be punished for the indecency. They ask to His Majesty that annul the engagement and remove the title of nobility of the boy immediately. Our hero thinks irritated that that bunch of old men noisy only knows how to hinder his plans. He grumbles that this group of old men decrepit is always plotting to ruin his dream of life easy. His name is Wen Ming and he used to be just a worker of office common on Terra. After the graduation he ended up in a company exploitative, believing in the promises empty of the boss. Worked so much with hours extra that literally fell dead in front of his computer one day. In this new life he was reborn as son of the great marshal of the Frontera Norte, the Marqués du Norte. With a history so prestigious he thought that he could finally live a life of luxury and relaxation. However, his father was assigned to guard the Frontera Norte and took everyone, leaving only the boy behind. That destroyed completely his plans for a life easy and tranquil that so much he dreamed of having. But the heaven never closes all the paths, and his father left a contract of marriage imperial with the deceased emperor. His fiancée was nobody less than the future Empress Marshal Wu Xin, and this left him very excited. From that moment onwards, the interests of Wu Xin became also the interests of him to please her. Everything that Wu Xin wanted, he also wanted, and the boy would do everything to be by the side of her always. To cling to the Empress Marshal became his new objective of life, to have peace and a life good. Only by clinging to her with force he could relax without worries and avoid the destiny of the life past. She irritated shouts that he does not need to use the face to massage her and orders him to get up immediately. The Empress asks how many times already she said that she is the leader, and to stop treating her like child, but he himself apologizes. He thinks that teenagers are problematic, and if he did not need her, he would not give himself to the work of pretending. The official bellows that Wen Ming dares to touch the body imperial and must punish him for disrespecting the throne. The boy says that only he relieved the tension of the wife and accuses the old men of intrigue, but the official him accuses of defamation. The boy orders the old man to shut the mouth while the official adds one more crime to the list of the prince consort. Suddenly the empress herself pronounces with a semblance serious and says that already enough of this discussion, foolish. She then releases her powerful aura and shouts for that everyone themselves keep silent immediately in the great hall. The officials are caught by surprise by the explosion of power and are thrown backwards with the force of her. The empress reprimands to all, saying that she summoned them to discuss matters of state, not to fight for nothing. With fear, the officials only manage to stutter the name of Her Majesty, fearing the fury of the young woman. They quickly themselves bow in apologies, recognizing the error and saying that they would not dare any more such thing. The boy smiles victorious and says that his dear wife already herself got tired of the nonsense bureaucratic of them there. However, one of the officials seems nothing content with the situation and looks with anger at the young prince. He thinks that when he marries Wu Xin in 1 year he will make these old fossils beg for mercy on their knees. Then the empress herself turns to him and reprimands for his behavior inappropriate in the court royal. She says that they are only engaged and asks to not call her wife so casually until the marriage official. The young woman lets out a sigh, tired after all that confusion, and tries to maintain the composure before the others. The young woman lets out a sigh, tired after all that confusion, and tries to maintain the composure before the others. She asks what he is grumbling, and he disguises offering another massage after so much time seated. Wu Xin refuses, saying that she needs to focus on the matters of state, and asks about the report of the Frontera Nori. An official informs that they received information from the scouts, and the tribe's barbarian are mobilizing great forces. They probably plan to invade while the reign of Her Majesty still is new and not is totally established. The boy confident says for the empress not to herself worry because his father is invincible and the barbarians not would dare to cross. The girl of hairs white thinks that although he is a fool, his father the Marqués du Norte is a warrior without equal. Suddenly, a messenger enters running in the hall, interrupting to all with news urgent from the frontier. The officials themselves turn surprised with the arrival sudden of the messenger, breathless and worried with the message. The messenger announces that he brings a message urgent from the Frontera Norte for the attention of the Empress there. The Great Marshal of the Imperio, Marshal Zhu Yu herself, kneels and asks that Her Majesty give a look at the report. The prince consort laughs and says that they must be news of his father crushing the forces barbarian quickly. He himself turns to the officials and says that that is an example of how they contribute to the empire. The Empress asks to read the report in voice loud, and the boy asks to announce the deeds of the father. Zhu Yu begins to read the report urgent from the Frontera Norte about a great invasion barbarian with 200,000 soldiers. At midday, the Great Marshal Wen Tian led his forces to intercept them, and the boy agrees proud. At fall of the night, while the battle itself intensified, something terrible and unexpected happened on the front of battle. The marshal continues saying that the Great Marshal Wen Tian deserted to the barbarians, and the boy smiled without knowing. The smile of our hero disappears on the spot, and he becomes completely shocked without believing in what he heard. The smile of our hero disappears on the spot, and he becomes completely shocked without believing in what he heard. She him throws on the floor with a blow quick, and the boy shouts of pain and surprise with the action sudden of her. She him throws on the floor with a blow quick, and the boy shouts of pain and surprise with the action sudden of her. The official himself approaches and questions if even now he dares to give excuses, and the boy becomes without words. That same official shouts that there much he suspected of the ambitions, treacherous of the Marquise, and accuses the son of espionage. Other officials agree at shouts, and one suggests that he be an example, while another asks for an execution slow. The Empress remains in silence with the eyes closed while the counselors continue shouting punishments cruel. The young man thinks irritated what type of father betrays the son thus, and if he was going to himself rebel he could have him taken along. He looks at Wu Xin thinking that hardly he had a day of peace, and his father him stabbed in the back after so much effort. Desperate, he shouts that he not will die thus, and implores to Her Majesty, for the friendship of childhood, a chance. The eyes of the Empress themselves widen a little, and she seems surprised or perhaps touched by the appeal of the boy. She looks down and remembers of various moments of the childhood of them playing together, and he her consoling. Then the girl says that she not will kill him, and the prince consort asks, incredulous, if it is really true. The officials protest, asking for Her Majesty not to herself influenced by the lies, and that traitors must be eliminated. An official more agitated shouts with force, for that all make silence immediately in the great hall. The Empress affirms that he will be spared but not will remain unpunished, and certainly will be punished for his acts. The boy accepts any punishment relieved, and thinks that his flattery finally was worth the pain because still he has hope. The Empress orders that Zhu Yu him throw in the dungeons, and the marshal promptly agrees with the command. And then with a look serious, she continues the sentence of the prince consort, leaving all apprehensive. Her Majesty orders that the Doctor Imperial him transform into an eunuch of the palace, and the boy becomes petrified. The eyes of our hero themselves widen in pure terror, and sweat cold runs down his face, desperate. Cuts the scene to a great palace with various floors and lakes around, showing the grandeur of the place. We are in the residence of Wu Xin in the Salão das Bençãos at Tranquilidade, a place calm and serene. We see the Empress relaxing in a bathtub while she arranges her long hairs white with delicacy. Her feet dive into the water, crystalline with petals of rose, floating, creating a scene relaxing and beautiful. The young woman sighs in the water, hot, seeming thoughtful and a little worried with the last events. Her eyes pink demonstrate a certain sadness or perhaps uncertainty about the decisions that she took recently. She reflects that the barbarians attacked, and the Marquise has a hostage in the capital herself, asking why he himself would rebel now. Judging by the reaction of panic of Wen Ming, not seems premeditated, and she herself asks what scheme is in play. Suddenly a voice feminine asks who is leaving the esteemed Empress so somber, and herself approaches. The voice continues of form playful and suggests that perhaps it is because she feels much lack of that person. The Empress herself gets scared and calls for Cici, while a girl of hairs pink her embraces from behind in the bathtub. Tao Cici, a friend close of Wu Xin and artist martial of 6th level, exclaims about the sensation incredible. She continues praising the softness and elasticity of the skin of the Empress, with a tone animated and fun. Wu Xin, irritated, asks why, after of so many years, Cici still not herself got rid of the habit of groping the people. The girl of hairs pink laughs and says that she not can avoid when the sister Wu Xin has a figure so good. She then comments that speaking of figures, the changes in the body of the Empress over the years were extreme. Cici asks what the sister Wu Xin said, but the Empress responds embarrassed that not was nothing important. The girl of hairs white questions if Cici not should be training in the mountains, and if not lacked much to finish. Cici says to not underestimate her because she mastered the skills of the master there much time, but he are found imprudent. However, after knowing of the ascension of the Empress to the throne, the master of Cici her sent to help her to govern. The friend says that the path of an emperor is full of difficulties and that Her Majesty can consult her always. Tao Cici swears in name of the Seta dos Oito Trigramas to help Her Majesty to overcome all the obstacles of the path. The Empress looks at the friend and admits that, of fact, there is something that she needs to discuss with her in that moment. Sissy herself gets excited and asks if it is politics of the court or some prince plotting rebellion losing the seriousness. Wu Xin becomes embarrassed and says that she has a friend with a problem, and Sisi listens attentively to the story. This friend received immense kindness from a senior and in gratitude agreed with a pact of marriage with the son of him. For more than a decade, her love of childhood, her treated incredibly well, always attentive and realizing her whims. But recently she discovered that that senior deserted to the enemy and himself became her adversary direct. With the marriage itself approaching, she not knows how to face the fiancé, son of a traitor, and fears the future. Sisi interrupts and asks if this friend not is the own empress, and Wu Xin becomes nervous with the question. The girl of hair's pink laughs, thinking that the empress is herself worrying with something simple, and she asks for a suggestion. Sisi remembers that her master said that even that a man controls the words, not controls the body, and the infidelity appears. She suggests that someone trustworthy test the fiancé secretly to see if he has a heart wandering or is loyal. The empress becomes thoughtful with the suggestion of her friend and considers the idea of testing the prince consort. Wu Xin then declares that she took a decision, and Sisi, curious, asks about what she decided to do then. Wu Xin then declares that she took a decision, and Sisi, curious, asks about what she decided to do then. The empress declares that she decided and Sisi will be that one to seduce her fiancé, leaving the friend shocked. The eyes of Sisi shine with a mix of surprise and perhaps a little of fear with the task unexpected. The scene changes to a place dark with a large construction traditional in the background indicating tension. Someone sharpens a blade on a stone of sharpening, creating sparks and a sound ominous in the environment. A man bald with a knife asks to the young Marquise if he is ready, but the boy denies, desperate. Wen Ming shouts that he was accused falsely and that Jiaxin only said that to calm the ministers. The man orders him to stay quiet and shoves a cloth in the mouth of the boy to silence him completely. The executor says that everyone knows that the father of him is a traitor, and if he not do the service, his head will roll. He tries to calm the young man, saying to not have fear because it will be only a cut and not will hurt anymore. The boy, gagged, thinks if he will himself become the first transmigrator castrated of the history in panic. Suddenly the door is broken down with a kick, and Sisi appears in the entrance, surprising the two men. Sisi, smiling, announces a decree imperial and says that the task of Wen Ming was reassigned to her. The prince consort cries of relief, thinking that he knew that Joaxin not would endure to herself separate from him thus. The executor, confused, confirms that it is an edict imperial, but the content seems different from what he expected. Sisi, with a smile radiant and a sword enormous on the back, declares that the order will be executed by her. The face of the executor himself contorts in pure horror upon seeing the girl with that weapon, gigantic and frightening. Wen Ming, desperate, shouts that he prefers that the uncle do the service, and the man flees running from there. The sword of Sisi is stuck in the floor right in front of the boy Tide, who looks terrified at the blade. He asks if Jiaxin not spared his life, and if Sisi is there to castrate him or assassinate him with that knife. Sisi, with a smile sinister, says that he should be grateful for having the person most smart as companion in the suffering. Sisi says that already enough of conversation and parts towards him, but the boy implores for her to wait, scared. The girl becomes surprised and confused with something that she sees, and her eyes pink themselves widen suddenly. She looks fixedly at that and seems not to believe in what is seeing in that moment of tension. Sisi herself asks how she will cut that and if she should take everything, while the boy shouts that she not knows. Suddenly something happens, and the prince consort looks down with an expression of shock and pain. Blood spurts, and Sisi looks surprised at the result unexpected of her action with the sword giant. The old executor comments that the Grand Dynastia Wu now has one more eunuch with a tone of lament. The boy shouts for Sisi to stop looking and help him to stanch the bleeding quickly before that it worsens. She smiles embarrassed and says that she forgot of a small detail important about herself in that moment. Sisi then faints upon seeing blood because she has dread and falls on the floor, leaving the boy still more desperate. Wen Ming enters in panic total upon seeing the girl fainted and he bleeding without nobody to help. He shouts for her to stanch the bleeding before fainting completely, but already is late, too much for this. The scene changes to the Salon du Intendant under the light of the moon, showing a place tranquil and silent. The boy himself asks from where came that maid crazy of the palace, and that she was very cruel with him. He thinks that still good that the fool faints upon seeing blood and not perceived that the cut was only on the thigh. The protagonist had luck this time, and not can let nobody discover that he not was really castrated. Suddenly he hears a noise and himself gets scared, thinking that someone is coming to check the situation of him. Steps themselves approach of the door, and the boy becomes tense without knowing who is arriving in that moment. Delicate. Sisi enters smiling and asks if Xiao Wen is well, bringing an expert in eunuchs to see him. The great Chamberlain Eunucho Hai smiles and says that it is only someone with more experience to help there. Sisi calls for Xiao Wen upon seeing him himself moving under the blanket, but he not responds to the call of her. She asks what there is of wrong, and the Eunucho Hai says that he is holding the tears and understands the feeling. The boy thinks with anger that the eunuch not understands nothing and that he is only trying to hide the truth. If not were for the fear of exposing his secret, he already would have given a punch in that old eunuch, irritating. CZ minimizes, saying that they are only some grams of meat, and asks if still they can be good sisters. She herself approaches with a smile, and the boy feels a chill with the attitude strange of the girl. There, suddenly he begins to shout and cry, desperately surprising the girl of hair's pink with the reaction. CZ asks if he is really crying, and if to turn eunuch is so painful, thus for him in the moment. She then asks to the eunuch Hai how much time he took to himself recover from the castration, and he responds that varies. Hai says that judging by the condition of Xiaowen, he not runs danger, and the palace gained an excellent comrade. The eunuch himself says goodbye, leaving the two alone, and the boy thinks that he will make her pay for that all. CZ herself turns to the boy who is lying on the bed, and he seems irritated with the presence of her there. He her praises sarcastically and asks if she already can go away now that he is well, but she smiles. CZ says that she was designated by the Empress to take care of him and will be responsible for everything until he himself recovers. The protagonist perceives that Shinzen still suspects of him, and this lunatic was sent to monitor him closely. CZ herself kneels beside the bed, and the boy continues lying, trying to ignore the presence of her there. She asks if he ate something since he was caught, and says that she brought food for him to himself feed. The boy thinks that at least this crazy woman has a bit of conscience for herself, worrying with his hunger. CZ asks for him to open the mouth to feed him, but he looks suspicious at the food that she brought. She shoves a bread hole in the mouth of him at one time, and the boy becomes choked without managing to breathe right. The boy thinks desperate that this woman definitely is trying to kill him with so much food in the mouth. CZ asks if he slept after some bites, and the spirit of the boy floats out of the body. She decides to tidy the patio and thinks that perhaps she has talent for taking care of people while she leaves humming. Suddenly the boy spits all the breads that she shoved in the mouth of him with force and relief. He grumbles that that palace not is place for a man to survive, and if it continues thus, he will die there. The protagonist thinks that still good that who him watches is only a woman weak and looks at a stick nearby. If he manages to take care of her, he will have a chance to escape from the palace and himself get rid of that situation. The scene shows the patio external of the Salao du Intendant at night under the light of the moon full and bright. The boy himself approaches stealthily of Cici, who is sweeping the patio distracted with her task there. She complains that a formation rocky is in the way, and the boy himself prepares to attack her from behind. Sissy then destroys the rock with a blow of the broom and complains of the dirt underneath, surprising the boy. The eye of the protagonist shines with a mix of surprise and perhaps a little of fear of the force of her. She asks why Xiaowen is standing, and he invents that he needs to use the bathroom quickly to disguise. Cici questions if he needs a stick of wood, only to go to the bathroom, and he becomes without answer. The boy says that he was castrated and not manages to walk without support, but Cici orders him to have care then. He thinks that she seems delicate but is strong, and the knives of the castration were enormous and without sense. Cici observes the boy himself move away limping with the stick, and seems a little suspicious of the attitude of him. Suddenly she sees Xingxin hidden in the bushes, observing everything, and becomes surprised with the presence of her. The Empress, irritated, asks why Cici really him castrated when it was only to scare him and obtain information. Cici tries to herself explain, embarrassed, and the Empress now thinks in what to do since that he is an eunuch. Xingxin questions what the sense of testing the loyalty of him now that he supposedly is an eunuch. Cici then asks if the Empress really likes of that guy, but she denies quickly with the face red. Xingxin justifies that an eunuch not would have ambition any, and Cici agrees with the thought of her. The girl of hair pink says to have a way of testing if he has intentions treacherous, and the other herself gets startled. She reveals that the walls of the bathroom of the palace are very low, and if he is rebellious he will try to flee through there. Cici continues explaining that already she installed traps on the side of outside of the walls, and not there are guards patrolling there. Thus if he climbs the wall, his identity of traitor will be sealed, while the boy already begins the climb. The protagonist smiles, confident, thinking that this small palace not him holds, and he will take the throne of her. With a smile, evil Cici says that after a little of persuasion he will confess, but Xingxin finds that too much. Suddenly a shout of pain echoes through the place, scaring the two girls who look in the direction of the sound. Cici exclaims, animated, that he must have activated the trap when trying to escape, and she will catch him in the act. The Empress seems disappointed and thinks if Wenming was lying to her the time all about his condition. The shout of agony continues while the scene changes to another place, showing a roof of the palace at night. Meanwhile, the eunuch Hai orders his subordinates to stay attentive and pretend deafness to certain noises suspicious. Some pigeons white fly quickly through the patio, passing near the eunuch and his men of guard. One of the pigeons is hit in full flight by a small projectile and lets fall a message tied to the paw. The eunuch Hai skillfully catches the scroll that fell from the bird messenger before that it touched the ground. He then unrolls the small message to read the content that just he received secretly there. After reading the note, the eunuch older confirms to himself that the information is really true. Holding a talisman in flames, he perceives that that thing really is in the hands of the brat of the family Wen. Cici runs following a trail red on the floor and shouts that this genius finally managed to catch him there. With a kick, she breaks down the door of the bathroom and orders the boy not even think in trying to flee from her now. The girl becomes shocked upon seeing Wen Meming seated on the toilet with much blood gushing from the groin of him. Shinsen arrives soon after, and herself gets scared with so much blood while Cece faints again with the impact of the scene. The boy shouts asking if they are perverts, and if even an eunuch in the bathroom is worth observing thus. He seems furious and says that they not only him castrated but now want to humiliate him in that manner. Cruel. Then he jumps dramatically and more blood spurts while he them challenges to see his state lamentable. Wenming laughs madly asking why not they are looking and orders to record that vision shameful in the minds. Shinshin becomes horrified with blood spurting on her face while the boy continues shouting his words. He insists that everything is a misunderstanding, but the scene of blood gushing continues, leaving everything more dramatic. In an act of despair, Fane, the protagonist himself, throws against the wall as if he were in great agony. Shingsen, all dirty and nervous, says to Cece fainted that they need to go away and asks apologies to the boy. A small smile appears in the corner of the mouth of the protagonist, indicating that his plan is working well. Fallen on the floor, he thinks relieved that finally he managed to deceive the two with his acting convincing and theatrical. The Empress wakes Cece irritated and complains that the idea of her maid lose the face in front of Wenming. Cece tries to calm the friend, saying that he is only an eunuch and not would dare to spread the shame of Her Majesty. Furious, Singshin pulls the cheek of Cece and asks who ordered her, really him, to castrate, and the girl admits the error. The Empress reflects that not she expected injuries so serious and he bled so much, only using the bathroom there. Shingzhen then gives a new task for Cece to take care of Wenming without tricks until he himself recovers completely. She herself says goodbye, ordering Cece to be good with the boy, and the girl of hair pink understands the order received. The Empress thinks relieved that fortunately he not her betrayed of truth and smiles with tenderness to herself. The protagonist grumbles if even to go to the bathroom they him follow and perceives that they are really suspicious. He laments that his wound reopened when climbing the wall, and for this still he is trapped there suffering enough. While herself moves away, Cece looks behind with an expression serious and thoughtful about the situation all. With the look determined, she thinks that Not is so easy to deceive as Wuxian, and will expose the true colors of him. Lying on the bed, the boy thinks that after being tormented by the crazy woman and losing so much blood, finally he can rest. Holding a spoon, he reflects that the bathroom was a chance of escape, but not he will bet everything in one place. Holding a spoon, he reflects that the bathroom was a chance of escape, but not he will bet everything in one place. Suddenly Cece him calls to help her carrying a sack, enormous, and him surprises with her appearance sudden. She asks why he is himself sneaking, and the boy nervous says that he lost much blood and was resting. The girl of hair pink doubts if he thinks that this genius is idiot and perceives at a glance that he hides something. He questions why she is in the room of him with so many things, and Cece places a bundle on the bed of him. She says that Her Majesty ordered that she take care of him, and for this she will live together, and begins to take off the clothes, shocking him. Cece smiles with the reaction exaggerated of the boy and not understands the motive of so much astonishment by part of him. She continues herself undressing and asks what an eunuch would do even if she stayed naked, leaving Wenming nervous. Already with little clothes, Cece thinks that the old woman said that men sleepy are easy to take secrets, and it is the chance perfect. The boy covers the face embarrassed and thinks that, even being eunuch, that still Not is nothing appropriate there. His eye demonstrates how tense and uncomfortable he is with that situation, unexpected and embarrassing in the room. Wenming himself gets scared when Cece herself approaches from behind him on the floor and asks what she is doing there. With a look innocent, she responds that obviously she is applying the medicine necessary on the back of him in that moment. The boy shouts that Not he needs of help and can do alone, while his face shows panic and embarrassment. Cece him immobilizes on the floor and orders him to stop whining because Not she wants to be punished by Her Majesty for this. He thinks indignant that this woman crazy has a body incredible, and himself asks what type of man she thinks that he is. A mushroom with face appears, and the boy perceives that she not even needs to lower the pants to discover the truth. Cece orders him to stop himself contorting, and the protagonist, desperate, thinks that she is strong too much and he is lost. The girl of hair pink stops and asks what he is hiding with an expression curious and suspicious. With the face determined, he thinks that to maintain his disguise Not he has other choice but to act fast. Blood gushes again, and Cece shouts scared while the boy thinks that it is time for the old trick again. The girl enters in panic with so much blood, and the protagonist thinks relieved that hardly he managed to escape this time. He grumbles that that woman not only ruined his life but now is even taking his bed to sleep. Looking at the spoon, he perceives that, at this rhythm, he will be exposed soon and needs to hurry his plan of escape. Suddenly, a hand touches his face of form unexpected, and him scares while he holds the spoon with firmness. Cece him embraces from behind sleeping and murmurs for Xiao Wenzi to confess, soon leaving the boy tense and surprised. He thinks irritated that she him interrogates even sleeping, and questions what type of posture for sleeping is that. The girl continues talking sleeping and says that she will catch him now, leaving the protagonist still more nervous. In her sleep, Cece talks about the weakness of him, and her hand slips to a place very dangerous and delicate. In her sleep, Cece talks about the weakness of him, and her hand slips to a place very dangerous and delicate. He clamors to the heavens for that someone him kill soon because the situation herself became unsustainable and humiliating too much. The protagonist thinks that still good that she sleeps like a mess and not held until of morning or he would be exposed. He himself gets up exhausted and thinks that really he is a man of 9 lives while a figure frightening him observes. The boy wakes up scared and sees the figure somber of Cece over him with the eyes shining in the dark of the night. The hand of her grabs the wrist of him with force while she him faces with an expression frightening and intense. Cece asks with a voice threatening what Zhao Wenzi is hiding there underneath, and the boy becomes terrified. She herself positions over him and repeats the question while the protagonist is paralyzed of fear and surprise. With a smile malicious, she asks, "What is that thing hard that she felt there?" And the boy enters in panic. He shouts desperate that they're not and thinks that he is finished because his 2 heads will be cut soon. Cece with a look sinister says for him to let her see, and the protagonist himself prepares for the worst in that moment. Suddenly she appears holding the spoon golden and the boy becomes without words with the turnaround unexpected. She asks why he is carrying a spoon and he invents that he felt hunger and looked for something to eat. Cece finds that boring and throws the spoon aside while the boy her observes with relief and astonishment. He cries relieved thinking that still good that he hid the spoon there or that crazy woman would have discovered everything. The girl says that forget this because she promised to take care of him and not can let him pass hunger and orders him to get up. The boy asks nervous what she wants to say with breakfast, while Cece looks for something in a sack large. With a smile radiant, she shows a basket full of breads large and fluffy for him to eat of morning. The protagonist becomes horrified with the vision of so many breads and a lightning seems to hit him of pure despair. The protagonist becomes horrified with the vision of so many breads and a lightning seems to hit him of pure despair. 7 days later, the scene shows the roof of a building of the palace under the light strong of the sun of the morning. The eunuch Hai appears and says that Zhao Wenzi had time to himself recover and now will learn to serve his master. The eunuch Hai appears and says that Zhao Wenzi had time to himself recover and now will learn to serve his master. She informs that Wenmeng was well cared for in the last days and already can himself move normally, leaving him desolate. The eunuch thinks that the boy not seems nothing well and suggests some more days of rest for him there. Wenmeng grabs the arm of the eunuch Hai with force and despair, imploring to be taken away from there. He shouts that not he needs of more days and that him take to any place while the eunuch asks calm to him. The eunuch Hai warns that he will take Zhao Wenzi and Cece asks for him to take care well of the boy who seems relieved. Cece reflects that we're 7 days without flaws and herself asks if he really not has nothing with the rebellion. The protagonist says that he will do anything to not return to be cared for by Cece and the eunuch laughs of the situation. The eunuch Hai looks at the boy with an expression serious and thoughtful about the future of him in the palace royal. He says for the boy not to himself worry because he already was son-in-law imperial and will find a good position for him. Wenmeng thanks and the eunuch minimizes but the boy suspects of the change, rapid of attitude of the old eunuch. The eunuch calls Zhao Wenzi to enter and a sign indicates that they arrived at the Cozinha Imperial of the palace there. He announces that the work of the boy will be to test the food in the kitchen and Wenmeng becomes shocked and drooling much. The eunuch Hai warns that the food of the palace is divine but he only can give a bite to not displease her majesty. The boy understands the rules and gives a bite enormous and 2 thighs of chicken at the same time shocking the eunuch. With anger contained the eunuch says for him to eat how much he wants because he is a wretch and thinks in slapping him there. Suddenly the boy himself kneels in front of the eunuch Hai who becomes surprised with the attitude unexpected of him. Wenmeng says that since he entered in the palace, the eunuch was the only one gentle with him and thanks sincerely. He then asks for the eunuch Hai to recognize him as his godson if he not himself import with the request. The eunuch refuses saying that the Marquise du Nordi still lives and not can accept him as son in that form. The boy cries moved with the nobility and righteousness of the eunuch Hai who seems emotional with the situation there. Wenmeng embraces the eunuch crying and says that he is his true father and will be loyal of all heart to him. With a smile evil the boy thinks that he will use the eunuch as trampoline and him will call him ancestor later. The eunuch Hai thinks that the boy is an idiot for falling for a favor small and himself will get rid of him when he gets what he wants. The two themselves embrace with falsity while thoughts treacherous pass through the minds of both their present. Wenmeng says that a bite not him fills and suggests more dishes to taste and the eunuch agrees reluctantly. The eunuch Hai complains that the dishes of the palace are beautiful but not satisfy and him will take to another place then. The boy asks if not is bad to be absent on the first day and the eunuch says that, as godson, he not needs to himself worry. The eunuch thinks that it is a good chance to check if he has that and orders the boy to himself get ready to leave. The scene changes to the Rua das Flores showing a street busy with many people walking around there at night. Young ladies invite the boy to the Pavilion Cungua to take tea and he perceives that he is in a place suspicious. He questions the eunuch if that is to go out to eat and if not is outrageous. 2 eunuchs to visit a place like that. A woman then guides inside, saying that the girls will satisfy them, and the boy becomes without knowing what to do. The eunuch Ohai says for him to himself have fun and that he will cover all the expenses, leaving the boy nervous and embarrassed. The eunuch instructs the madam to find the courtesan most beautiful to entertain the boy and report all the movements. He thinks that there are rumors of the technique miraculous of the Marqués du Norte, and if it is true, he had passed to the sun. A courtesan invites the young master to enter in the room while he seems hesitant and uncomfortable with everything. The boy waits in the room and thinks that the old eunuch him deceived, taking him to a brothel, and questions his intentions. Cici observes from afar and thinks that that guy definitely is up to something suspicious there in the place. She herself convinces that he is plotting something and decides to keep an eye to discover his plan's secret there. The madam presents a courtesan of the region's western, saying that nobles rarely her meet, and the boy waits. He reflects that the eunuch Ohai knows that he is a great eunuch but still him brought there and suspects of espionage. The boy says that not himself interests in courtesans and prefers more food, but the madam laughs of the joke of him. She comments that upon seeing her he perhaps wants to himself banquet on her, and the boy perceives something strange there. He thinks that it is suspicious too much and the old woman must be in cahoots with the eunuch Ohai to watch him closely. The madam announces the arrival of Lady Ruyan, and the boy looks curious at the door waiting for the courtesan. The feet of a woman with shoes elegant enter in the room and walk in direction to the protagonist, anxious. Wenmeng becomes tense upon seeing the silhouette of the courtesan herself approaching him with a cup in the hand in the room. He becomes shocked upon seeing a woman of appearance peculiar and thinks that she is exotic, too much for his taste. The woman him calls a bumpkin, ignorant with disdain, and the boy himself surprises with the attitude of her there. She throws the bag on the table and points to him, asking if it is he, the client of the night, and the boy becomes confused. Suddenly the woman unrolls a carpet red, and the boy not understands nothing of what is happening there. The woman then announces to give the welcome to Lady Ruyan, and the boy continues without understanding the situation. Shoes elegant with bells on the ankles step on the carpet red and walk gracefully through the room. A figure curvaceous and elegant emerges in the entrance of the room, calling the attention of all the present there. Li Ruyan, the courtesan of the Pavelho Kunqua, appears stunning and herself apologizes for the delay in attending him. The boy becomes without words and blushed with the beauty of the courtesan and says that not there is problem any with the delay. He thinks irritated that the eunuch Ohai is despicable, and if he really thinks that a beauty foreign him will tempt. Wenmeng becomes visibly blushed and surprised with the beauty stunning of the courtesan that him faces with a smile. Ruyan notes the face red in sweat of the boy and asks if it is because of the heat of the environment there. The courtesan smiles of form charming and seductive to the protagonist, who seems each time more nervous with her. The boy shouts internally that she is near too much, and his face becomes completely red of shame and panic. The boy turns the face all red, and she laughs, finding the reaction of him very fun in that moment of tension. Royan then him invites to sit and offers some fruits to quench the thirst of him with a smile gentle. The assistant and the madam comment that no man keeps secrets from Ruyan, and the boy seems inexperienced. Suddenly the eunuch Ohai emerges at the door, and the two women become completely shocked with his appearance there. The madam becomes open-mouthed and visibly scared upon recognizing the figure imposing that emerged by surprise in the place. With delicacy, the hand of Ruyan catches a grape from the bunch that is served on the table for the young master. The courtesan herself approaches and asks for the young master to open the mouth for her to be able to feed him with the fruit. He refuses, saying that he can eat alone and thinks that he needs to resist to the temptation that she represents there. Ruyan rests the grape on the chin of him, of form provocative, and he himself shrinks a little with the gesture of her. She then herself approaches enough and asks if he prefers that she him feed in that manner more intimate. All blushed, he thinks that she is a sorceress and himself asks who would manage to resist to that temptation all. The courtesan thinks that he himself gets disturbed easy and seems to be an eunuch, simple to deceive with her plan. Suddenly a voice interrupts, saying that the young master Jai arrived, and Lady Ruyan still is busy there. A man irritated emerges, pushing the madam, and orders her to leave from the way of him with much rudeness and haste. Jia Zhengdao, son of the first minister Jia Rini, shouts his name and asks who dares to impede him from entering. Wenmeng recognizes the newcomer as the wretch of the Jai Zhengdao and enters in panic immediately with the vision. He fears that if the other him catches there and tells to Jin Xin, at minimum he will be sentenced to the death slow. Without many options, the protagonist decides that he needs to risk everything in that situation, complicated and dangerous there. Without many options, the protagonist decides that he needs to risk everything in that situation, complicated and dangerous there. He demands that the best courtesan him accompany for drinks, or his status not would be duly displayed in the place. Jai Zhengdao shouts to give more silver to her because an extra knot is nothing for him, and the madam hesitates. The eunuch Ohai spies through the crack of the door, observing the confusion that the newcomer is causing there inside. He curses against the brat rich of second generation for ruining his plans in that moment crucial and delicate. Jai Zhengdao enters in the room animated to see how is notable that courtesan of the region's western up close. His eye shines with expectation and curiosity to finally meet the famous and desired Lady Ruyan there. He asks to Ruyan if she not was entertaining a guest, and she says that the other jumped from the window upon hearing the name of him. He asks to Ruyan if she not was entertaining a guest, and she says that the other jumped from the window upon hearing the name of him. Hidden under the dress of Ruyan, Wenming thinks that she did well in dismissing him and praises the attitude of her. Ruyan tries to maintain the calm, thinking that the brat is only an eunuch and not can expose him to obtain what she needs. Jia Zhengdao says that he heard speak of the beauty of Ruyan and that today is his day of luck for finally meeting her. He praises the courtesan, who seems irritated but disguises while he/her looks with desire and admiration evident. Ruyan offers wine to the young master Jai to refresh him from the journey and tries to maintain the situation under control. Jia Zhengdao holds the hand of her of form Cheeky, and Ruyan becomes surprised with the audacity and intimacy of him. He says that they are alone and not needs of ceremony, but Ruyan asks respect and says that she sells art, not the body. With a smile, malicious, he says that he will see how appropriate she really is, and himself approaches a form threatening. Suddenly, Ruyan spins and attacks the guards of Jia Zhengdao with skill surprising and much force physical. Wenming, who is hidden underneath the dress of her, becomes with the mouth covered and shocked with the turnaround. Jia Zhengdao observes shocked the courtesan spin rapidly like a top and attack his men with precision. With a blow powerful of her legs, Ruyan launches the guards far away with force and agility impressive. Jia Zhengdao shouts the name of Lady Ruyan, completely shocked and incredulous with the scene of fight that he witnessed. Wenming remains huddled under the dress of her and becomes completely amazed with the force of the courtesan skilled. Jia Zhengdao asks to Lady Ruyan what there is of wrong, and she says that he/her scared a little with his force. Underneath the dress, the protagonist thinks that the skills martial of the courtesan are a first and very suspicious. Suddenly, Wenming feels something strange and hairy with his hand, and becomes confused without understanding what is that. The courtesan lets out a shout sharp of surprise and pain, and her face shows shock with what happened there. Jia Zhengdao asks if she is trying to seduce him, and Ruyan denies, all red and irritated with the accusation. Jia Zhengdao asks if she is trying to seduce him, and Ruyan denies, all red and irritated with the accusation. The young master then says that he will himself join to her in the bed, but the courtesan tries to impede him from himself approaching. He touches the leg of her, commenting how the skin of a courtesan western is soft and she seems uncomfortable. The courtesan thinks irritated that already enough of joke and she not will let an idiot take advantage of her thus. Jia Zhengdao continues praising the skin of her but suggests that she should shave the hairs of the leg more times. Hidden, the protagonist becomes shocked and himself asks about hairs on the leg and what that really means. Ruyan looks to the side, completely confused and without understanding nothing of what he is talking in that instant. Suddenly, Jia Zhengdao pulls the dress of the courtesan with force, and she becomes shocked with the action unexpected of him. Suddenly, Jia Zhengdao pulls the dress of the courtesan with force, and she becomes shocked with the action unexpected of him. The boy, all embarrassed, says that if he swore that he is as confused as the other, he would believe him. Jia Zhengdao grabs Wenming with anger, ordering the brat to leave from there, and the boy asks to use words. The rich man asks if Wenming not was designated eunuch and to leave from the palace is crime capital, but he denies. Jia Zhengdao not believes and says that not he saw the eunucho high and why an old eunuch would come there after all. The eunucho high observes and thinks that if this continues it will cause problems, then he needs to retreat and test him later. Wenming tries to appeal to the friendship, but Jai says that it is late too much to use the card of the friendship now. The rich man remembers that only for admiring her majesty he him intimidated innumerable times in the academy formerly. Jia tells that he expected to win the recognition of her with his talents, but Wenming exchanged his test and him made fail. The protagonist, embarrassed, says that it was only a joke, harmless between friends, and Ruyan observes the scene all. The rich man continues and says that this not even was the worst part of all that he did with him in the past. He reveals that what most him irritated was Wenming ordering Her Majesty to designate him to take care of horses. With a smile nervous, the boy says that it was because he heard that Jia liked of horses and tried to help him. The rich man says that Wenming not imagines how happy he became upon knowing that he was castrated recently. Jia completes saying that what most him surprised was to catch him fleeing from the palace and him will deliver to Her Majesty. The protagonist with a look determined says that since that he himself refuses to have pity not should blame him. Wenming then catches a vase of wine from the table with an expression of fury and ready to attack the other. With the vase in the hand he shouts for the wretch to die and advances towards Jia with much anger. Unexpectedly, Jia Zhengdao holds the vase with ease and Wenming becomes completely shocked with the force of him. The rich man asks if the other is impossible and says that he never was so strong before, thus suddenly. With a smile convinced, Jia says that the fool naive thinks that he wasted those years like the boy. Jia reveals that after passing so much time with the beasts, he mastered a technique secret of fight special. The protagonist becomes open-mouthed and himself asks if that is even possible while Jack exhibits his technique. The rich man says that now that Wenming fell in his hands not should dream in leaving from there alive and him threatens. Ruyan observes and thinks that the small eunuch is her only way to the palace internal and he not can die. The courtesan decides to use a trick that she was saving for later to save the boy from that mess. Ruyan with a smile says to the young master Jaya that he just arrived and should drink with her before leaving. Besides this, she comments that if he takes someone as soon as he enters the madam, her will blame for not entertaining him. Jaya agrees that she has a point and not thought about this right, while Wenmeng observes tense the scene all. The rich man then himself boasts that his men guard the exits and not there is how the eunuch to escape from there of way any. Satisfied, he accepts the hospitality of Ruyan and she thanks to the young master with a smile charming and sweet. Jaya says that he is of good humor and if she him serves well she will be rewarded, and the girl thanks the kindness of him. With a wink charming, the courtesan holds the jar of wine and herself prepares to serve the young master Jet. Wenmeng, surprised himself, asks if she is trying to help him and what would be the motive of her to do that. Ruyan then offers a drink to the young master Jai and he accepts of goodwill the invitation of the beautiful courtesan. Discreetly, she holds a small flask near the cup of wine ready to execute her plan. Secret there. Suddenly the courtesan feigns a stumble and spills a little of wine on the clothes of the young master Jai on purpose. He says for her not to herself worry, and Ruyan asks apologies herself, making of clumsy to deceive the rich man. While he himself distracts, she quickly spills the content of the flask in the drink of him, and a mist emerges in the cup. With a look satisfied, Ruyan thinks that her plan worked perfectly as she expected and smiles victorious. The courtesan asks if the young master Jai is well and he seems completely stunned and incapable of speaking. Ruyan then activates her mist charming of souls and says that he is sleepy and wants to obey her now. Wenmeng observes shocked and perceives that she is using some type of technique to control the mind of Jaya. The protagonist concludes that if she can do this and with her tattoo she must be linked to that organization. She orders that from now on he only himself remember of her and Jaya agrees, saying not to himself remember of anyone else. Ruyan says that after a sleep deep he will follow all the instructions of her and he only agrees with everything. Suddenly the eyes of Jaya themselves widen and he seems to have noticed something strange happening there near. Jaya then shouts wait and himself gets up, suddenly surprising Ruyan, who still holds the small flask green. With agility, the hand of the rich man grabs the wrist of the courtesan, impeding her from using the flask again on him. Furious, he calls of witch and asks how she dared to drug him, while Ruyan questions how he woke up. Jia reveals that years dealing with manure of horse desensitized his sense of smell and the poison of her not him affected. Irritated, he accuses the two of conspiring and pushes Ruyan with force, making her fall on the floor abruptly. Wenmeng then emerges from behind with eyes shining and himself prepares to strike Jai with the vase of wine. Quickly the boy hits the vase with all force on the head of Jia, who not perceives the attack arriving. The courtesan observes the scene all with surprise, and a shout escapes from her with the blow accurate of the eunuch. The protagonist questions why he not caught the weapon, and Ruyan says that the drug affected the reflexes of him. Wenmeng notes that she is skilled in combat and poisons, and Ruyan says that only she did this to save him. She herself approaches him, saying that her heart was of him in the instant that she him saw, and for this him helped there. The boy then holds the arm of the courtesan, seeming suspicious of the approach sudden and of the words of her. He warns that the same trick not will work twice, and she says that the charms of her not are enough for him. However, Ruyan him kicks with force, launching him far away, while Jia continues fallen on the floor unconscious. The girl comments that although he is smart, still him lacks force, and the boy asks what she wants. With him on the floor, she herself approaches and says to not himself worry because only she needs that he himself behave well. All red, the protagonist warns for her not to try anything while he is trapped underneath her without defense. Desperate, he thinks that not he manages anymore to hold, and his face becomes completely blushed with the situation all. Ruyan looks at him with an expression confused and curious without understanding what is happening with the boy. Suddenly Ruyan perceives something and asks what is that, with an expression of surprise and curiosity on the face. Her face becomes completely red and she seems shocked with what just she discovered about the boy. Two guards on the side of outside comment that the courtesans always have a way with the words, and one of them asks about the master. Ruyan stutters and asks if he not is an eunuch, and the boy tries to say that everything is a misunderstanding there. The courtesan shouts that that is right there in sight, and he still dares to call of misunderstanding while she him holds. With anger, she thinks that the information was wrong, and the boy asks for her not to tighten with force that. Ruyan perceives that if he not is eunuch, then he himself took advantage of her, and if this leaks, she will lose the dignity. Without choice, she decides that the only way is to finish with him to silence him, and catches a dagger sharp. The protagonist shouts shocked and asks if she is talking serious, while the blade herself approaches dangerously. Quickly he rolls to the side, dodging the blow, and the dagger embeds in the floor with force and precision. Desperate, the boy himself asks how a simple visit to the brothel turned into a situation of risk of life thus. Ruyan advances again with the dagger in hands and an aura threatening around her, ready to attack the boy. He manages to dodge by little but ends up hitting with force against a pillar of wood and feels pain. The courtesan him calls of pervert without shame and herself prepares to strike him again with the dagger sharp. The courtesan him calls of pervert without shame and herself prepares to strike him again with the dagger sharp. Ruyan stops the blow at the last second and looks at him, completely shocked with the revelation unexpected. She denies having something to do with the sect, but the boy says that the skills of lying of her are terrible. The courtesan throws the dagger far away and says that perhaps she herself got excited a little too much in that moment, tense. Worried, she thinks how her disguise was discovered, and if more someone knows, she will be in serious danger. The protagonist her confronts, saying that to join to the sect is crime punishable, and she not would joke with this. The protagonist reveals that members of the sect have a mark tattooed and he saw with the own eyes on her. Ruyan says that since that only he knows this, it becomes still more necessary to finish with him, and him faces with hatred. Suddenly, a voice shouts to open way and a figure emerges in the entrance of the room, calling the attention. Two women enter and one of them complains of the interruption of the visit to the brothel and questions the scene all. The newcomer of hairs white herself asks why Wenming came to a place like that and seems confused. With a look evil, she says that finally she him caught in the act and seems satisfied with the situation all. The guards try to impede the women, but one of them questions and asks if they know who is there inside. The girl of hair pink kicks the guards with force and shouts that it matters who it is for Xiao Wenzi to leave. Ruyan and the protagonist observe shocked the arrival sudden of the two women and the confusion that herself forms. The boy recognizes the newcomer as Yaxin and says that she arrived at the hour right to save him from there. With joy he her greets as Her Majesty, but she asks for him not to shout her title in that place. The Empress becomes without words and embarrassed while Ruyan observes the scene all with curiosity and attention. The courtesan thinks if that is the Empress of the Imperial Marshal and notes that she is still more young than she imagined. Ruyan also perceives the aura terrifying of the Empress and thinks that not even her master would be more strong than her. The girl of hair pink accuses Wenming of being an eunuch and still come to places like that and questions his motives. The protagonist denies and says that the eunucho Hai him brought there only to eat, but the two not believe him. The Empress seems suspicious and he tries to himself explain, saying that Ruyan him pushed for a motive specific. Suddenly the boy feels a look threatening and perceives that the courtesan him faces with much intensity and anger. Ruyan him warns to have care with what he says, or even that she die him will take along with her from there. Wenming swallows in dry and becomes tense with the threat of the courtesan, who seems determined to protect her secret. Quickly the protagonist invents that Ruyan is masseuse and was finding the points of acupuncture on him. The Empress says that it is perfect because she is with arms sore and asks for a massage for the courtesan there. With a smile, nervous Ruyan agrees in obeying and massaging the Empress as she asked in that instant. Wenming asks help to Ruyan, but she says that the story was of him and wishes good luck with the plan. Crazy. The courtesan him threatens, saying that since that he is so without heart, not should blame her for dragging him along. Ruyan then reveals that she fell over Wenming because she discovered a great secret about him, and the Empress asks what. The girl herself approaches of the Empress and whispers the secret in her ear, leaving all curious with the revelation. Suddenly the boy intervenes and says that the secret is that he also is masseur and surprises to all. He continues the lie, saying that Ruyan learned his techniques and him pushed to test them on him there. Desperate, the protagonist thinks that not is time for jokes and needs of someone to take the blame for him. The girl of hair pink accuses the two of exchanging winks and says that she perceived the complicity between them. She questions why there are people fainted on the floor if they were only practicing massage there in the room. Wenming then begins to cry and says that he is of heartbroken because Jia him deceived to humiliate him. The Empress seems moved and says that Jia is cruel for treating Wenming thus, but the other not believes. The girl of hair pink says that enough to wake Jia and the lies of him will be exposed for all to see. With force she wakes Jia Jingdao with slaps on the face, and the boy enters in panic with the situation all. Confused, the rich man wakes up and asks where he is, completely lost and without understanding nothing of what happened. The protagonist thinks desperate that not there is how to cover that now and is completely screwed there. Jia then looks at Wenming with anger and him calls of brat, leaving the boy still more tense and nervous. The girl of hair pink orders Jia to speak and expose all the tricks of Xiao Wenzi for her immediately. Jia laughs with scorn and says that Wenming himself became eunuch and that is well done for him to learn the lesson. The girl of hair pink and the protagonist become shocked with the reaction, unexpected and strange, of the rich man there. She asks if it is only this that he has to say, and Jia questions if she also is enemy of him in the place. Ruyan explains that her mist makes the people lose memory, and the boy praises the demoness of the Seta Lotus. The rich man continues, saying that now that the brat is eunuch, the Empress will be of him to conquer finally. With a smile triumphant, he celebrates that he can easily replace Wenming and himself become the consort imperial of her. The Empress comments that he seems confident, and Jia says that his father is the first minister and everything is arranged. Suddenly he perceives the voice and himself turns scared upon recognizing who is talking with him in that instant. Jaya becomes pale upon seeing the Empress with an aura somber and eyes shining of anger and power intense. She announces that Jia Rini will be demoted 3 levels and the rich man will return to work in the stables immediately. The Empress then strikes with force, launching him far away, and he shouts for her to stay away from him there. Wenming and Ruyan observe the scene, shocked and without words with the demonstration of power of the young Empress. The courtesan thinks that still good that not she did nothing, because a slap casual of her has so much power thus. The girl of hair pink asks if she not him hit with much force, and the Empress says that she controlled. Jia falls on the floor with force and his sword embeds in the wood-breaking part of the floor with the impact strong. He wakes up again and asks what happened, but suddenly himself remembers of Wenming and of the woman mysterious. The protagonist and Ruyan become desperate and shocked upon perceiving that Jaya recovered the memory completely. Wenming questions Ruyan about the loss of memory, and she explains that a wound on the head can restore them. The boy thinks that if Jia explains everything he will be lost and needs to impede him at any cost now. The girl of hair pink asks for Jia to tell the crimes of Wenming, and he begins to explain the situation all. Wenming points to the sword stuck in the rear of Jaya and says that it seems that something is stuck there on him. With a smile, the boy quickly pulls the sword and Jia shouts of pain while the girl pink faints. The Empress holds the girl fainted and says that there is much blood, while Wenming shouts the name of her. The protagonist says that the condition of her knot can be postponed and the Empress must take her to the Doctor Imperial. He himself offers to take care of Jaya, and the Empress agrees and leaves with the girl fainted in the arms of her. Ruyan praises the capacity of the boy and he smiles satisfied with his plan, well succeeded and quick. Wenming asks if there is another way to make him forget, and Ruyan suggests another blow on the nape of him. The boy agrees that it is perfect and simple and effective to solve the problem of the memory of the rich man. With a smile he catches the vase that he used before and him calls a vase eraser of memory with pride. Jia asks what he is doing, and Wenming says that it is for his own safety, and him strikes hard. A shout echoes through the place while the protagonist hits the vase with all force on the head of the rich man. Wenming says that it is done, and Jia falls on the floor again unconscious and with a bump on the head of him. The boy comments that after of all they are practically allies now and looks at Ruyan with hope. The courtesan says that not she has interest in being allied of an eunuch false and dismisses the idea of him. He insists, saying that the sect of her invaded the capital for a motive and he can be a man infiltrated. Ruyan asks why she should trust him to help her, and him faces with suspicion and doubt clear. Wenming reveals that his father is the Marqués du Norte, who himself rebelled, and he hates the empire for the castration. The courtesan remembers that he not is really an eunuch, and he becomes surprised with the perspicacity of her. The boy says that this proves his deception, and Ruyan asks for him to put on the pants before of anything else. He explains that the Empress him watches, and if she discovers his condition he will have a death worse than the sect. The protagonist asks what she wants, and Ruyan throws a pill in the mouth of him with speed and precision. He coughs, and asks what she him made swallow, and the courtesan smiles with malice at the boy scared. Ruyan says to not himself worry because it is her pill harmonizing yin-yang and the effects only appear in 7 days. Wenming asks what happens after 7 days, and her faces with fear and apprehension for the answer of her. She warns that if he not take the antidote he will turn a beast, consumed, and his disguise will be exposed there. The boy complains that he wanted to help her and she him poisons, but Ruyan says that the pill will be beneficial later. The courtesan orders him to collect information in the palace and return in 7 days, and he agrees reluctant. With anger, the protagonist thinks that as soon as the rebellion of the father has success, he will finish with the Set de Lotus. In that night, in the room of Wenming, a figure mysterious emerges suddenly and observes the place with attention. A man masked and dressed in black appears in the room and seems to be looking for something there. The eunucho Hai curses Jaya for ruining his plan in the moment. Crucial, but fortunately has a plan B. He catches a small object and himself prepares to place it in the drink of the boy that is over the table. The eunuch still has a second plan and himself approaches of the drink with the object in hands, ready to act. Suddenly the protagonist enters and the eunucho Hai himself hides quickly to not be caught in the act. Wenming comments that he fears ghosts him facing, and not only knocking on the door and looks at the window open, he himself gets scared upon seeing the girl of hair pink there, and she him faces with curiosity and a little of suspicion. The boy remembers of having closed everything before leaving, and himself asks if the room is really haunted. The girl says that he only was distracted and this not proves his conscience guilty for something. Wenming complains that they him tormented the day all, and he not even drank water, and himself turns to get a cup. Hidden, the eunucho Hai observes, and the boy says that he is dying of thirst and catches the drink from the table. Hidden, the eunucho Hai thinks that this same for the boy to drink quickly and fall in the trap. The protagonist then himself approaches of the cup and is about to drink the water without suspecting of anything there. Suddenly the girl of hair pink shouts for him to wait and impedes that he drink the liquid of the cup. With the look attentive, she observes the cup of water and seems to suspect of something strange in it. The girl catches the cup quickly and says that she will drink first because also she has been busy the day all. The boy asks why she feels as if she had heard another voice, and she responds that perhaps it is an echo. Ignoring the warning, she begins to drink the water while the protagonist her faces with much anger and surprise. She drinks with will and a little of the water runs down her clothes, white of form, very showy. The young woman then finishes drinking and says with satisfaction that the water was very refreshing and tasty. The protagonist becomes embarrassed and thinks if it is even necessary to make so much noise only to drink water. Hidden, the Yunuko Hai himself gets irritated and curses because someone always appears to ruin his plans. The masked man thinks that fortunately the powder works on both sexes, and when the girl succumbs he will be able to test the condition of the protagonist. The girl says for him not to be stingy and if he wants water to fetch in the patio, and he her calls of stubborn. The boy then leaves from the room and himself directs to the patio to get water in the well as she suggested before. Arriving there, he finds a sign warning that an eunuch jumped in the well, and for this it is interdicted. The protagonist himself despairs and shouts who the hell would go to the Jardim Yihi in the middle of the night to fetch water. The Yunuko Hai thinks that the potent aphrodisiac is incurable unless touched by water, icy, and that the boy not will escape. Wenmeng then gives up and says that he will wait until tomorrow to get water in the Kazenia Imperial of the palace. The girl of hair pink asks if he is really with thirst, and he confirms that yes, with the head. She then says that also she is herself feeling very hot and with thirst, and her face becomes red and sweaty. The girl herself approaches and says that they need to find a way to quench the thirst, and the boy asks what she wants to do. He shouts for her not to herself approach so much of the face of him, and her face is with despair and fear in the eyes. Suddenly she him kisses with force, and he becomes shocked with the action unexpected of the girl of hair pink. The protagonist shouts asking what she is doing because that was his first kiss and he not even kissed his beloved. The young woman says that not was enough and continues with the face red and sweaty, desiring more contact. With the eyes shining, she says that still not is enough, and the boy her calls of pervert and orders to stop. He thinks that the woman seems to be under effect of something and himself asks if the pill yin yang that he took is contagious. Or then he questions if she still is testing if he was even castrated, and she shouts that she wants more now. Hidden, the Yunuko Hai encourages the girl to discover the secret of the boy while he tries to flee from her. The girl him pursues and says that that place also can quench her thirst, and he shouts for her not to pull his pants. The protagonist thinks that the woman pervert is really him testing, and that a little of seduction not him will make slip. She him grabs with force and comments that he is very strong while the boy continues fighting to himself get loose. He then her throws in the well and says for her to see how him she will test inside the water icy from there. The Yunuko Hai himself gets irritated and complains that the people never manage to follow the plan of him, not even one time at least. Suddenly something hits the eunuch and he himself asks what is that falling over him by surprise. A figure shouts calling him of bastard while the rain begins to fall hard in the place dark and isolated. A man older complains that to go to brothels already is bad, but to be caught by Her Majesty him may be demoted 3 levels. Jia asks for the father him to let explain and says that everything is fault of that bastard of the Wenming who him humiliated. The father of Jia him reprimands for having been deceived by an eunuch discarded and says that this him makes seem more useless. However, he affirms that Jia is his son and he will settle the accounts with Wenming, and the boy becomes very happy. The father of Jia says that the situation is unstable and him prohibits from causing more problems for 3 months. Jia agrees and leaves downcast while the father of him and another man observe with attention the boy. The man asks what happened with the leg of Zhengdao, and the father of Jia says that Wenming him injured. The other man shows the dagger used and says that he had saved as evidence for the future of them. The father of Jia catches the dagger and it examines with attention and surprise upon seeing the details of the weapon. He recognizes the symbol on the dagger and perceives that it belongs to the Seta Lotus Celestial and becomes shocked. In the 10th fourth year of Chuyan flood's massive hit, and innumerable people suffered enough with this. The legend says that a sage of the West conjured grains and guided the souls of the dead, helping the victims. However, the government local not accepted the help and sent soldiers to arrest the sage and the sufferers. For surprise of them, the donkey white of the sage himself transformed into a man, strong and unbeatable right there. Thus emerged the Lotus Celestial and the sage, bringing happiness to the living and guiding the dead to the land pure. The man says that this is the origin of the Seta Lotus Celestial, and the father of Jia declares that it is treason. The father of Jia says that the Seta Lotus Celestial is connected to the family Wen, and this is a fact. The other man understands and says that he will prepare the litter, but the father of Jia says that a dagger not proves nothing. He offers 100 taels of silver for who investigate the contacts recent of the boy Wen and give a clue. The man asks if 100 taels not is little, and the father of Jia himself gets startled because it is almost his salary of half month. The father of Jia says that he has 10 taels hidden in the shoe, and the man asks for him not to himself undress. The man suggests that if he is greedy, remember of the dog lost of the minister with reward of 4,000 taels. The father of Jaya says that in 3 days he will report to Her Majesty and will eliminate the family Wen and their plans. With a look determined, he thinks that publicly and privately this time he will have the life of Wen Ming. In the well, the water splashes to all sides while the girl is there inside, after being thrown by the boy there. Wen Ming laughs and thinks that he is smart and that the woman crazy never again will be able to test him again now. Suddenly, he perceives something strange and his face changes of expression rapidly inside the water cold. The boy himself gets scared upon seeing that the girl simply fainted in the water with the eyes rolled and everything. He then himself worries because, if she dies, the small Sing Sin, with certainty not him, will forgive of Wei any. Wen Meng emerges from the water with the girl in the arms and shouts desperate, trying to take her from there rapidly. With difficulty, he holds the rope of the well with one hand and the girl fainted with the other with force. Exhausted, he falls on the floor beside the well, while the girl of hair pink continues unconscious there. The protagonist says that he is very tired and already himself repents of having her dragged into the well before. He then asks, worried if she not is really dead, and her faces with fear of the answer of her. Fortunately, still there is pulse, but she not gives any sign that she will wake up, and he becomes worried. With a look determined, he decides that in this case, she not will be able to blame him for taking an attitude there. The boy then places the hands over the chest of the girl and himself prepares to initiate the first aid. He remembers that fortunately not he forgot the knowledge of first aid from before and was anxious to use. Wenming thinks that the attributes of the woman crazy not are insignificant and more exaggerated than those of the Singson. He himself reprimands for letting the mind wander as eunuch and says that he must be totally devoted to Xingsin. Even after vomiting water, she not woke up, and it seems that they will have to proceed with another step. He lifts the chin of her and thinks that it is thus that one does, while the girl seems confused and stunned. Wenming says that not he her will let die, and she herself asks why he seems so anxious to save her. The girl thinks that he should hate her and herself questions about the preoccupation of him upon announcing the breathing artificial. The eye of the girl herself widens in surprise and a slight blush emerges on her face with the proximity of him. Suddenly she him hits with a slap and asks what he is trying to do with a genius like her. He explains that only he tried to save her because he thought that she was going to die, but she calls this of nonsense total. The boy sighs, relieved and with a little of shame after the reaction unexpected of the young woman there. Winmin then says that forget this and is happy that she not died, and she remains in silence, thoughtful. The girl observes the boy and thinks that even after being hit, he still himself cares about her and questions. She then herself asks if the bastard really likes of her, and for this himself worries so much and what she will say to Wuxin. The protagonist says that already is very late and they should themselves dry to then return rapidly to rest. He then perceives that the girl continues seated there and asks why she still not herself got up. When the hand of him herself approaches of hers, a sound of slap echoes in the place of form, very loud and clear. Wenming asks please for her not to do anything that placed the Empress in a position difficult again. The scene then changes to the Gabinete de Asuntos Internos in the residence of the Eunuco High at night all. Inside the place, the Eunuco High is at his table concentrated and seems to be writing something important. He holds a note that says that in 3 days barbarians of the north will enter in the capital for the banquet. The eunuch burns the note and thinks that to trust only in poisoning is enough ridiculous and foolish. A voice says to not himself worry because the prince planned everything, and the Eunuco High himself turns surprised. The figure mysterious herself reveals and is Huang Tianli with a hat of straw and a smile on the lips. 4 characters cute appear on the screen thanking and asking support of the spectators for the content. The Eunuco High thinks that not even he believes that His Highness him sent and must be confident in the plan then. Huang Tianli affirms that both are essential for the great enterprise of His Highness and dismisses praises. Huang Tianli says that he will stay in the capital to assist and expects the guidance of the Eunuco High, who seems polite too much. The Eunuco High then reflects that he him sent to watch him and if His Highness would be beginning to suspect. Huang Tianli then delivers a flask blue, explaining that the poison is colorless without flavor and undetectable for the Eunuco High to use. The Eunuco High comments that already he saw poisons like that but remembers of the tasters, and Huang Tianli assures that it was made for this operation. He details that the lungs of the victim will wither like leaves of autumn and she will suffocate, and the process is irreversible. Shocked, the Eunuco High holds the flask and questions if exists a poison so cruel in the world and what would be its name. With a slight smile on the face, Huang Tianli maintains the mystery about the substance that just he delivered. He then reveals that the name of the poison is Witherbane, while the moon full illuminates the palace at night. 7 days themselves pass, and in the Jardim Imperial, a beautiful landscape of the place is displayed under the sky, blue clear. The girl of hair pink lets out a sigh while is on the floor of the garden, seeming exhausted of the work. Lying beside a pile of weeds, she comments that the envoy of the barbarians of the north will arrive soon there. Then she spots Wenmeng seated at distance and seeming to be resting and becomes intrigued with that. With an expression serious and a little irritated, the girl of hair pink continues observing Wenming in silence. Stealthily, she herself approaches of Wenmeng from behind while a drop of sweat runs from the head of him. The girl shouts that Wenming is loafing again, and he laughs embarrassed, saying that only he stopped for a brief rest. Curious, she asks what he is hiding there, and he responds that they are only notes about the envoy. The girl reflects if he would be planning to use the envoy to have some form contact the father of him. She then tries to catch the notes of him shouting that not she will fall in this conversation, and he shouts Cici not. The girl him knocks down on the floor with force and says that he not will escape this time while he asks to wait. Trapped under her with the face on the bust of the girl, he thinks why this little devil has a body so well endowed thus. He thinks that if this continues, all will discover that he in truth not is an eunuch of truth. But if not, he stays thus, his disguise will be discovered, and he will ruin the collection of information for Lu Ruyan. Desperate, the boy then himself asks what the hell he will do now in that situation. Complicated there. Suddenly a voice announces that Her Majesty is arriving and for all to open way immediately. The Empress emerges imposing with an expression serious, and her servants her accompany closely right behind her. Wuxian observes the scene, embarrassing with Cici on top of Wenmeng on the floor of the garden of the palace. The Empress then asks what Cici thinks that she is doing in full light of day with him there. Cici tries to herself explain, saying that she suspected of Wenmeng, and the Empress then faces the boy surprised. Wuxian questions if what she said is true, and Wenmeng denies vehemently any bad intention there. He then himself offers to be searched, and says that not he has nothing of strange with him to prove. Cici insists that he hides something and swears that she saw a brush saved before with the boy clearly. The Empress then gives a strong flick on the head of Cici, who shouts of pain with the blow received. Wuxian orders Cici to stop bothering Wenming and her takes away from there, pulling her ear with force. The protagonist observes the two themselves move away and lets out a sigh of relief for a brief moment there. He sighs once more, thinking in the luck that he had, because for very little not he was discovered by them. The boy thinks that without his training daily of the floor pelvic, he would have been exposed with all certainty. However, the deadline of 7 days is almost at the end, and he needs to act soon with much urgency now. He hopes that this map of the defenses of the palace is sufficient to finally win the confidence of her. The Eunucho High walks thoughtful, and if His Highness has success in poisoning her, his plan all will fail. He not can let that they discover his plan and needs to find the technique of cultivation of the family, when fast. The Eunucho High observes Wenming at the gate, and the boy says that he was sent to buy supplies for the barbarians. Wenming thanks and thinks if the kid is using the name of him to leave from the palace and get something. With a smile, the Eunucho High thinks that he must be planning to use this chance to find the technique. He celebrates having caught the boy in the act and that the legacy of the family Wen soon will be completely his. The Empress orders Cici and Wuxian to wait on the side of outside while she enters in the place alone there. The door itself opens with a creak and the Empress enters in the room with steps firm and decided. The skirt of the Empress flutters while she walks through the room with elegance and much confidence in herself. Wuxian says that Cici has observed Wenming for days and not found nothing strange, and this means that he is well. Cici insists for Wuxian not to lower the guard because the boy definitely is hiding something important. She affirms to have seen him acting of form suspicious more than one time and asks more time to catch him in the act. She affirms to have seen him acting of form suspicious more than one time and asks more time to catch him in the act. Cici then catches a cup of tea and drinks while Wuxian her observes in silence with a look attentive. With the look penetrating, Wuxian faces Cici and seems to have perceived something strange in the behavior of her. Wuxian then asks if Cici not would have herself fallen in love with Wenming, and the girl spits the tea surprised. Cici shouts that not of way any and some maids in the patio themselves get scared with the noise sudden of her. She denies vehemently and says that she hates the boy and he is only an eunuch very below her there. Wuxian says that not she needs to explain because already she understood everything, and Cici her face is confused and worried. The Empress comments that Wenming is smart and handsome and even that she herself has fallen in love, not her will blame. Cici becomes sulky and asks if Wuxian not her called there only to talk of jealousy and nothing more. Wuxian says that not and her called to discuss how they will deal with the barbarians of the north, and Cici already expected. Wuxian comments that even with the rebellion, the barbarians not took advantage of the chaos and sent an emissary. Cici says with pride that her genius already had perceived this and shows a scroll important. Wuxian asks if it is a map of the empire, and Cici it opens over the table to show the details. Cici points that the pass Yanyun is the key to resist to the tribes of the north, and with the rebellion he fell. She explains that the rebellion was sudden and he not said to the sun to flee, and if they marched him they would kill. Wuxian says that the old fox knows that she is sentimental and counts on her hesitation to kill Wenming. Wuxian, still herself, questions if the Marquise would stay in an impasse if Wenming continued in the capital as hostage. Cici then declares that there is only one truth and the envoys not came to negotiate but yes to rescue Wenming. Wuxian becomes shocked with the revelation and perceives that the plan of the barbarians is really very terrifying. The Empress calls Zhuai, who appears promptly and herself places at disposal to fulfill her orders. Wuxian asks about the envoys and Zhuai informs that they not followed the protocol and not went to the palace. Zhuai reveals that the 3 envoys of the Alianza du Norte diverted to the Casa Kongua and not to the palace. Wuxian and Cici become surprised and shocked upon hearing that the envoys went to the Casa Kongua there. Cici then understands everything and her eyes shine with the perception of the truth behind the events. She asks to go to the Casa Kongua because the truth them awaits there and the scene changes to the place. Wenming arrives at the Casa Kongua and is received by some women who him greet with joy. Wenming arrives at the Casa Kongua and is received by some women who him greet with joy. The boy thinks that not it matters how many times he comes there, the place still is too much for him to endure. Suddenly a voice asks who is in command and orders the responsible to appear immediately right there. 3 men, large and strong, enter in the place and order all to leave from the way for the passage of them. The envoy barbarian Beatar comments that is the legendary Casa Kongua and seems very impressed there. A lady says for the gentlemen to ask what they need and one of them orders to bring the girls most beautiful. The lady agrees and says that she will take care of everything and them invites to enter and enjoy the place of them. She then whispers to a young woman that the guys seem disgusting and to prepare Dahu and inform the officials. The barbarian Albu reminds Beatar of not forgetting the motive of they being there because not it is a trip of pleasure. Beatar spots a young woman and her faces with interest while the other women themselves get scared with the presence of them. He grabs the young woman and says that she seems decent and to come with him and she asks for him to wait. Wenming observes the scene and thinks that the way how they are dressed definitely them identifies as northerners. Wenming observes the scene and thinks that the way how they are dressed definitely them identifies as northerners. The barbarian then declares that the men of the Dynastia Wu are all cowards and Wenming remains in silence. Wenming reflects that he thought that they were envoys and he could use them to know about the father, but they act like bandits. Suddenly he feels something strange and a mushroom smiling appears in his mind, indicating the effect of the poison. The eunuch Hai observes Wenming running and thinks that it is for this that he acted strange and the manual is there. Wenming shouts for help from Lu Ruyan and says that not he endures anymore while he runs desperate through the place. He runs through a corridor and suddenly bumps into someone with force and the two fall on the floor together. The woman blonde complains and Wenming becomes with the face on the bust of her while the two are fallen on the floor. The two fall on the floor in a position compromising with Wenming over the woman blonde and scared. The woman asks what the problem of him and if not he knows to where is looking and he questions how he would know. She orders him to get off of her with anger and seems to be very irritated with the situation all there. The blonde then him threatens saying to control his third leg or she him will transform into an eunuch of truth. Wenming then himself gets up and says that not he wants to discuss about this now, and the woman blonde him faces confused. He delivers the map of Defense Imperial and asks desperately for the antidote because he is about to explode right there. She offers a pill and says for him to take soon and then tell everything about what happens inside the palace. The boy thinks relieved that finally he will stop being the toy of that witch and extends the hand for the medicine. Suddenly the antidote flies far away from the hand of him when the door itself opens abruptly and he becomes shocked. Wenming enters in panic upon seeing his precious antidote flying far away and his eyes widen of pure fright. He looks at the door and sees the blonde still fallen on the floor while the door itself opens revealing the visitors unexpected. The three barbarians enter in the room and one of them asks if she is the girl most beautiful of the Casa Kongua. The leader barbarian comments that the Planicies Centres really have women very beautiful and wants to give a good look. The blonde herself pretends of misunderstood and asks if they are guests and says that to invade, thus suddenly scares a girl. The lady of the house emerges and says for Ruyan to treat well the men because they are great spenders and pay well. Ruyan thinks irritated about the old woman greedy and herself questions why right now this had to happen with her. Ruyan thinks irritated about the old woman greedy and herself questions why right now this had to happen with her. Wenmei shouts desperate with Lu Ruyan because she kicked the antidote of him along with the important map there. Ruyan then herself gets up and invites the gentleman to enter first and enjoy of a drink tranquilly. Suddenly the barbarians hear a noise strange and look at Ruyan confused trying to understand what happened. One of the men asks what was that sound underneath the bed and Ruyan nervous responds that perhaps it was a rat. Meanwhile Wenming is huddled underneath the bed and thinks that still good that he is flexible and not will be caught. Ruyan whispers for him not to himself move a muscle or he will die and he thinks that not he would be there if she not kicked. She herself asks, irritated why the problems always follow this boy and thinks that if he not were her only informant. Ruyan offers a dance or massage to the gentlemen and one of them asks for her to dance first for them. Suddenly the scene focuses on the part of bottom of a door closed and something seems to be happening there near. An eye observant spies from underneath the door with much attention and seems to be looking for something. The Yunuko Hai then comments that he suspected that the technique and the pills of the clan Wen would be hidden there. Meanwhile, Wenming stretches the hand from underneath the bed trying to reach the scroll and the antidote on the floor. He thinks determined that he needs to catch the items and is almost managing to reach only more a little. Suddenly, one of the barbarians shouts, furious with the woman blonde, and seems to have perceived something strange. Ryan and Wenming become shocked and surprised with the shout sudden of the barbarian and not understand the motive. The man questions Ruyan about what she is talking and why she them treats like fools there present. He her accuses of sending someone to spy on them and points to the door, furious with the situation all. Ruyan becomes completely confused and without understanding nothing of what the barbarian is accusing her right there. The barbarian shouts for the coward of the Dynastia Wu to leave from there, and the Yunuko Hai himself gets up slowly. Suddenly the door is kicked with force and hits the Yunuko Hai in full, who shouts of pain. The Yunuko Hai is thrown far away with the impact of the door, and the barbarians observe the scene attentively. Already on foot, he says that since that they him found, he will catch what he came to look for by force without hesitating. He declares that some clients, not him, will impede from getting the regeneration of members and them faces. The barbarians perceive that he is an artist martial of 8th level and a possible assassin of the Dynastia Wu. The men of the north themselves prepare for the combat and stay in alert maximum against the new enemy strong. The Yunuko Hai advances rapidly and manages to catch the scroll and the antidote that were on the floor there. With a look satisfied, he holds the scroll and says that finally he managed to catch what so much he wanted. The barbarian him confronts and questions if he thinks that he can simply invade and flee, underestimating the warrior of the north. With a look of pure fury, the Yunuko Hai simply shouts for the enemy to die soon there, and the fight restarts. Then the two initiate an exchange of blows, intense and very fast, showing their skills martial in the combat. Underneath the bed, Wenming himself questions what type of spectacle bizarre is that and why all want his antidote. In this, the Yunuko Hai concentrates an energy somber and powerful in his hand, preparing a blow special and strong. The Yunuko hits the chest of Beatar with the blow somber, and the barbarian feels pain while the items fly to the Hai. Looking up, the Yunuko Hai exclaims that he caught the items while tries to grab them in the air rapidly before that they fall. Unexpectedly, the other barbarian Albu attacks the Yunuko Hai by surprise, catching him unprepared there in the middle of the action. Albu then delivers a punch potent in the Yunuko Hai while him insults, calling him of old bastard without pity. Even feeling the impact of the blow, the Yunuko Hai maintains an expression determined on his face, sweaty and tired. Next, Albu manages to knock down the Yunuko Hai with a trip, and Ruyan observes the scene surprised in the background. The barbarian Albu clicks the tongue, demonstrating his irritation with the persistence of the eunuch in the fight difficult. Suddenly, Wenming sees the antidote and the scroll falling near him and celebrates happy, saying that it is back. Batar comments about the skills and hands fast of the old man and questions about the conversation of regenerating members. The Yunuko responds that those fools not would understand because his suffering goes beyond the imagination of them and is profound. Then he utilizes his technique, Unlimited Heaven Earth, and an energy powerful repels all around him with force. Hit by the technique, Ryujin shouts in shock and asks why he also is her attacking there without motive. With the impact of the blow, Royan feels a strong pain and ends up spitting a little due to the force of the technique used. The Yunuko Hai thinks with himself that this movement is very tiring and he not can remain there for more time. Exhausted, the Yunuko Hai ends up letting the scroll fall on the floor while Wenming and Royan observe the scene attentive. The barbarians curse irritated, and the third of them draws a sword ready to continue the combat intense. The Yunuko Hai laughs loud and says that nobody can stop him now while he jumps to flee from the place rapidly. The barbarian with the sword shouts that he not can simply himself think the strong and flee, and him pursues swiftly. Ruyan herself asks, shocked from where he took that sword, and observes the scene with the mouth still bleeding. The Yunuko Hai uses a blow of sword called Cut of the Moon Crescent, and the barbarian shouts of pain upon being hit. Abu says that he is very injured, and with the work of feet of Beatar he should manage to catch him, and Beatar agrees. Suddenly Cizi appears, shouting furious, and questions how they dare to do that there in full light of day. Wukin emerges with her guards and Cizi and asks what lack of shame is to attack people in full light of day. Meanwhile, Royan, fallen on the floor herself, asks what there is of wrong with all and complains that they stole her map. Suddenly Wenming her grabs from behind and she herself gets scared with the touch unexpected of him there in the moment. Wenming her holds with force, and she shouts scared without understanding what is happening with the boy. She perceives that it is Wenming and herself asks if the poison is doing effect on him now, and he seems disturbed. Batar recognizes the Empress Wuxian and becomes surprised with the appearance sudden of her in the place of the confusion. Kabu alerts Badar to stay attentive because the assassin could have been sent by her to attack them there. Wuxin then walks elegantly in direction to the barbarians who her observe with much suspicion and caution. The barbarians become shocked and themselves ask when she managed to arrive behind them without that they perceived anything. Wuxin orders to all the guards marshal to surround the Casa Qinghua and not let not even a fly escape. The guards respond in unison that yes, madam, and themselves prepare to fulfill the orders of the Empress immediately. Sissy comments that they are making much noise and Wuxin says that the important is to find proofs against Wen Meng. Suddenly, Beatar shouts for them to stop right there and the two women him face surprised and confused. Batar asks confused what is happening and if they not came to arrest them there after all. Wuxin questions if still there is a savage around there and Cici perceives the wound on the head of the barbarian enormous. Cici explains that they are envoys barbarian and not knows with whom they were fighting, and Wuxin says that not she would notice. Wuxin says that not she has time for them and orders the guards them to escort to the palace and the barbarians become shocked. Batar thinks furious how the woman dares to humiliate them thus, and considers advancing the plan of them right there. Suddenly, Aobu places the hand on the shoulder of Badar to calm him and impede an action precipitated of him. Abu reminds Beatar that the Empress is a warrior of 9th level and to not act of form imprudent. Batar grumbles and agrees in going with the guards while them faces with disdain and much anger contain. Cici observes the barbarians depart and remains in silence thoughtful about the events recent there. Cici alerts Wuxin to have care because they attacked in full light of day and can be with Wen Meng. Sissy asks why she not them detained and Wuxin responds with an expression serious and very determined. Wuxin declares with confidence that the intention assassin of an ant not means nothing for a dragon strong. Cici becomes marveled with the words of Wuxin and her admires with the eyes shining of pure excitement. Wuxin says that they are there for Wenming and for the guards to watch the brutes in the palace and Cici agrees animated. Inside the Casa Conqua, Cici orders to the guards marshal to remove all from the place immediately from there. Cici orders to search each room and not leave any corner without checking to find what they are looking for. Wuxin jumps with agility to the floor of above of the Casa Qinghua, demonstrating her great skill martial. With a look determined, Wuxin thinks that Wenming not should disappoint her and hopes to find something useful. Meanwhile, Wenming himself feels strange and asks what is happening with him because not himself feels well. Suddenly, he wakes up in a bed and perceives that the poison must have done effect and he ended up fainting there. Wenming shouts to wait and perceives the poison doing effect again and becomes very desperate with this. He pulls the sheet with force and perceives that he is without clothes and himself asks what happened there. Relieved, he thinks that still good that his small Wenming continues intact and sighs tranquil in the bed. Suddenly he feels something strange and himself asks confused what feeling is that he is feeling there. He then squeezes the sheet with force and seems to be feeling something uncommon underneath it himself. He then squeezes the sheet with force and seems to be feeling something uncommon underneath it himself. He pulls the sheet and finds Ruyan underneath it and she him faces with much anger and shame. Wenmeng smiles embarrassed at the woman blonde and she seems to be very irritated with the situation. Ruyan him faces furious and he lifts the sheet a little more to see better the scene shocking. Wenmeng shouts that nothing of that is right and Ruyan him accuses of having done something and pretend that nothing happened. Ruyan thinks indignant that she is the saint of the Seda Lotus Celestial and ended up herself involving with an eunuch false. Wenming says that not he had choice because she is more strong and even drugged, not he would manage to dominate her of form any. She declares that nobody in the sect can know of that and the eunuch false must die for the secret of her. Wenming her face is surprised and seems to be shocked with the declaration of her and what she intends to do. Suddenly he grabs the arm of her with force and she shouts scared with the action unexpected of the boy. Suddenly he grabs the arm of her with force and she shouts scared with the action unexpected of the boy. Ruyan becomes shocked and herself asks if he can hear her thoughts and if the legends of the saint are real. Wenming asks for her to explain the legends and she thinks that he really took the luck big this time. Ruyan explains that the saint cultivates a technique where the power is shared and the hearts themselves connect there. Wenming understands why himself feels more strong and asks if he caught the power of her and an aura him involves. With a smile confident, Wenming thinks that with this force in hands, nothing will be able to detain him in the capital now. He catches his clothes rapidly and Ruyan him faces surprised with the action sudden of the boy right there. Wenming declares that himself will join to the rebellion of the father and leaves running while Ruyan shouts for him to stop there. Ruyan shouts furious that he not will go away thus, and not can simply have something with her and flee. Suddenly Wenming feels a pain sharp in the foot and Ruyan him faces with a look serious and very irritated. He shouts of pain and asks why his foot hurts so much and she says that he not can catch the power without consequences. Ruyan explains that now that the force of her is of him, he is responsible for completing her mission of infiltration. Wenming her faces with a smile and asks what will happen if he simply says no to the proposal of her. Rapidly Ruyan catches a dagger that was nearby and seems to be ready to use it if necessary. With a look threatening, she holds the dagger and says that then she will guarantee that the two end together there. Wen Meng becomes shocked with the threat of her and perceives that the situation became much more serious than he imagined. Royan says that if she loses the purity and fails in the mission of the sect, only one destiny her awaits and it is the end. She threatens that if he not help her to spy in the palace, then the two can very well end together now. Wen Meng says for her to use the brain, and if he finds the father, the objective of overthrowing the dynasty will be complete. Ruyan insists that he must continue spying in the palace, and Wen Meng asks, irritated for what motive he would do this. She explains that to help the Marqués to himself become emperor is only to exchange one tyrant for another, and they want equality. Suddenly they hear guards on the side of outside, and Wen Meng becomes tense with the approach of them there near. The guards say that it is the last room and the envoys of the north entered there, and Cizi agrees with the head. Cizi perceives that nobody responds and concludes that Wen Meng must be there inside, hidden from them now even. Cizi orders to the guards to surround the room and block all the exits, and they agree promptly. The guards themselves approach of the room with steps firm and determined, ready to fulfill the orders received there. On the side of outside, the guards themselves align in front of the door and wait for the command to invade the place. The guards on the side of outside themselves prepare with their lances in hands and await the orders to advance. A small rat appears from a hole in the floor and makes noises strange, calling the attention of a guard. Cizi then uses a trunk to break down the wall of the room, and the guard observes the scene, surprised there. The rat observes the hole in the wall and seems to be confused with the noise sudden and the destruction in the place. Cizi smiles with a look evil and says to Wen Meng that she wants to see how he will escape this time from them. Wuxin asks to Cizi if that is really the last room, and she confirms that yes, with certainty. Cizi then kicks the door with force and announces the inspection of the guards marshal for all inside the room. From inside the room, a voice shouts, surprised with the invasion sudden of the guards and of the Empress there. The shadow of Ruyan appears behind a screen, and she asks apologies for the form how is dressed in the moment. Wuxin orders that they search the room minutely, and Cici agrees promptly with the order of the Empress Wuxin. Wuxin asks to Ruyan if she saw Wen Meng, and the girl responds that not him saw around there recently. Royan asks if Her Majesty desires more something, and Cici her face is thoughtful and suspicious of the girl. Cici herself approaches of Ruyan and asks what she is doing there, and her face is with much suspicion. With a look determined, Cici says that the bed of her seems suspicious and that she will check immediately the place. Cici finds some clothes intimate on the bed of Ruyan and becomes surprised with what she found there in the room. Ruyan offers the pieces to Cici and says that she can give some to her, and Cici refuses, irritated with the offer. Cici catches one of the pieces and complains that those clothes are very daring and becomes embarrassed with the situation. Cici concludes that since that he not is underneath the bed, and knowing the habits of Wen Meng, she knows where to look. Cici declares that he must be hidden in the bed and dives to check, but Ruyan tries to impede her there. She looks underneath the bed and becomes surprised upon not finding nobody there, as she expected that would be hidden. Cici herself asks if not, there is nobody there, and becomes confused because she had certainty that Wen Meng would be hidden. Cici thinks that based on what she knows of him that not makes sense, and Wen Meng is hidden in the ceiling. Wen Meng thinks that still good that he absorbed the force of Ruyan or not, he would manage to do that of Wei any. Wukan says that not makes sense and must there be a passage secret there, and Cici begins to look. Ruyan complains, irritated for Cici to stop throwing the things of her around while the other looks for Wen Meng. Suddenly Cici hits the shoulder against something and feels a slight pain with the impact, unexpected there. The bed trembles a little, and Wen Meng and Ruyan themselves look worried with the noise that they made without wanting. Wen Meng himself strives to hold on the wall and not fall from there of above, and end up being discovered by them. Cici hears a noise strange and asks what was that, and Ruyan her face is nervous with the situation. Wen Meng thinks desperate that they are about to find him, and Ruyan says that she will cover for him to flee. Cici suggests that perhaps he is hidden on top of the bed, and Ruyan laughs nervous, trying to disguise everything. Ruyan begins to swing the sheet rapidly to try to hide Wen Meng, who is right above her there. Cici asks why she is swinging the blanket, and Ruyan says that it is her favorite and likes of it. Cici warns for him not to try any trick, and Wen Meng on the floor observes the scene tense and worried. Cici complains that still not there is nobody there, and her deduction genius not could be wrong of form any. Cici herself gets irritated and says to Ruyan to leave from the way because she will break the bed in pieces to find him. Ruyan and Wen Meng become shocked with the declaration of Cici and not know what to do to impede that. Suddenly Wuxin appears and says for Cici to stop with that because already is enough for now there. Wukan says that her father her warned to never damage the property of a citizen for emotion, and Cici her faces. Wuxin declares that already they made scene too much, and for Cici to settle the damages with the owner before they depart. Cici agrees, and Wuxin orders her to lead the squadron out while Ruyan observes in silence there. Wen Meng on the floor thinks relieved that it seems to be safe for now, and sighs tired with the situation. Wuxin looks behind one last time before leaving and seems to be thoughtful about something important there. In that night, in the residence secret of the Lord High, the scene changes to a place dark and mysterious then. A servant is taking care of the wounds of the Lord High, who is seated in a chair thoughtful and serious. The Lord High opens the scroll and says that finally he managed the technique secret of the clan Wen and smiles. Suddenly he becomes shocked upon seeing the content of the scroll, and his expression changes to pure surprise. He sees a map of the palace and himself asks how that is possible, because he expected the technique secret there. The Lord High hits on the table furious and shouts that not it can be, because he should have the technique secret. The servant himself gets scared with the anger of the Lord High, and him faces worried with the reaction of him right there. The Lord High perceives something strange on the map, and him faces with more attention, trying to understand what it is. He finds a drawing of the body human with points marked and becomes confused with that on the scroll. The Lord High catches the drawing of the body and him compares with the map of the palace and becomes surprised with something. He throws the drawing to the High and seems to have a revelation important about the content of the scroll. With a smile evil, he says that now he understood everything and seems to have deciphered the secret of the map. He perceives that the map is being used to simulate the flow meridian of the body and becomes impressed. The Lord High understands that the gate east of the palace is the point, Shanzhong, and the tower west is the Qihai. With this revelation, he touches on some points of the body and tries to break his limits using the map there. He catches the pill secret of the clan Wen and himself prepares to use it along with the map of the palace. The Lord High places the pill on the tongue and it swallows rapidly to feel the effects of it in his body. His eyes widen suddenly and he feels a wave of power running through his body intensely there. He groans of pain and feels a sensation mysterious and powerful while the yin and yang themselves harmonize in him. The servant shouts that the nose of the Lord High is bleeding, and he says that it is the blood old being purged. Suddenly, the Lord High feels a pain intense and his nose bleeds more still with the effect of the pill. He punches the floor with force and an energy powerful explodes around him while the servant himself gets scared. The Lord High himself gets up and says to contemplate the marvel of using the palace as body and the pill as key. Suddenly he feels a pain excruciating and spits blood while his eyes also bleed much there. He is thrown to the High with the force of the energy and the servant observes the scene shocked and worried. The Lord High falls on the floor with force and the servant runs to help him asking if he is well there. Fallen on the floor, he laughs maniacally and says that finally he managed to complete the advance that so much he desired. He declares that in 3 days he will be able to regenerate his members and all who him humiliated will pay dearly for this. The Lord High swears vengeance and says that the banquet will mark the beginning of it and soon the empire will be his. Meanwhile, Ruyan herself sits on the bed and seems to be relieved that the confusion finally ended there. Royan says that they already went and Wenming can leave and he comments that they are connected in mind and heart. Wenming thanks the kindness of her and says that himself will marry with her when the father takes the capital of them. Suddenly Ruyan him pulls by the ear with force and he asks what there is of wrong with her there. Royan him threatens with the dagger and says for him to continue spying in the palace, where there will be consequences serious. Wenming shouts scared and asks for her to drop the dagger because he not wants problems with her now. Wenming asks what is the true mission of her and if he should himself infiltrate forever in the palace. She then him questions if he already heard speak about the legend of the Veya du Dragao of the Dynastia Wu and he seems confused. Ryan explains that the ancestors Wu sealed a dragon true that himself became the Vane and with its power united the continent. 100 years later the dynasty is corrupt and the people suffer, but the vein of the dragon still exists and impedes a revolt. The mission of her then is to find the location exact of this vein and in sequence destroy it completely. The boy becomes shocked and thinks with himself that this story all seems to have come from another unit. Royan not understands what he wanted to say and he disguises remembering that she can read his thoughts. The girl says for him to stop himself distracting and himself concentrate because now he possesses all the power of her. Ruyan points to the chest of him and affirms that it is just he finished the work and bring justice to the people. He sighs resigned and says that he understood the task of finding the such vein of the dragon for her. Suddenly she blushes intensely and adds, and besides this, of form timid and a little nervous. The girl explains that after of they having passed the night together, the mark of the Lotus Celestial was transferred to the body of him. She then asks for him to check with care to not be exposed while he's spying around. Wenming becomes completely shocked with the idea of having a mark in a place so strange and unexpected. He pulls his own pants to check the such mark while Ruyan diverts the look embarrassed. An image of an elephant cute with the mark of the Lotus Celestial emerges, and he says, alright. Wenming thinks that if someone by chance finds that mark it will be only one more crime for his long list. He sighs himself asking why so many things insane continue happening with him and she him calls. The young man himself turns curious and asks what was now, and she blushed, asks for him to have care in the search. Wenming her questions if she is worried about him and she shouts that if he dies she also dies and him orders to disappear. Royan blushes of anger calling Wenming of idiot and says that he not has any sense of romance then. The boy becomes stopped near the door, seeming a little thoughtful about the situation. Alright there. Wenming thinks that she is a woman foolish, and he also can hear the thoughts of her easily there. In that night inside the Palace Imperial, the scene then changes to a vision aerial of the place illuminated. A guard yawns sleepy while something passes flying rapidly by him. Without that he perceives anything. The young man runs happy and thinks that to have arts martial makes everything more easy, including invading the palace. The voice of Ruyan him warns to not be convinced and forget his mission while he runs through the forest. The girl in the bed says that to find the vein knot will be from the night to the day, and he has a month for this. He complains that it is easy for her to speak because he not even knows if the vein is in the capital or its appearance. Wenming touches a wall and himself asks if the vein of the dragon could be hidden there inside them. Carefully, he catches a stone from the floor and it observes for an instant, seeming to have an idea. He throws the stone in a well, thinking that perhaps it is a place classic to hide treasures. Hidden between bushes, he thinks that the vein could be even in a flower bed any. Suddenly he sees two cats in a position funny and becomes surprised with the scene unexpected there. The cat Black jumps on him and Wenming shouts that not he wanted to interrupt because not even he likes of cats. Right. Cizi appears and thinks that Wenming is very suspicious, but she never manages to catch him and act there. Irritated, she complains with the cat to stop running and says that she will herself remember of that later. Wenming gives up for today and sees hidden herself asking what she does there, so stealthy that. Sissy him observes and thinks in discovering what he plots while the boy decides to go home to sleep. She herself asks if he only is returning after so much time and if he her perceived there hidden. Arriving in the room, he thinks relieved that the girl of hair pink knot is nearby, but Cici him glares with the look. A noise of water splashing on the floor of stone is heard while the scene herself focuses on the liquid there. Soon after, Wenming relaxes in a bathtub of wood and sighs, relieved for a moment of peace, finally. The voice of Ruyan emerges asking why he already is resting if hardly he looked for something. She says that the palace is enormous and he already checked everything and the rest is prohibited for his status then. He responds that he will deal with this of his way while Cici observes from outside, suspicious of the situation. Cici thinks that he is plotting something and says that it is time to catch him in the act small. The boy then thinks that he believes that she manages, but for greater efficiency he will give some motivation. Ruyan with a needle says that for the mission of the sect sacred this pain knot is nothing, and Wenming himself gets scared. She pricks her own hand with the needle as a reminder, and he shouts desperate with the scene there. On the side of outside, Cizi herself asks why suddenly everything became so quiet and finds strange the situation. Suddenly Cici ends up falling inside the bathtub and Wenming shouts desperate for his hand right there. The legs of the girl fly to the high while she unbalances and falls of form clumsy in the water. The two become in a situation very embarrassing inside the bathtub without knowing what to do then there. Wenming, irritated himself, asks what this crazy woman is doing there inside his bathtub now even. Cici thinks that he is totally suspicious and is spying on her in the bath to confirm her identity. The boy becomes tense and thinks that not he can let her perceive anything of uncommon with him of way any. He falls on the floor and Cici seated near there seems embarrassed and a little confused with all that. Cici, irritated, asks why Wenming suddenly bumped into her in that way without any explanation. He throws water on her and asks why she is spying on the bath of a boy, and Cici shouts scared. Cici shouts that her eyes were polluted by the water of the bath of an eunuch, and Wenming thinks in fleeing fast. Furious, she him calls of wretch and asks if he is trying to escape from there of some form. Rapidly, Cici grabs the pants of Wenming, him impeding from leaving, and he becomes surprised with the action. He asks why she is pulling his pants and Cici says for him not to think in escaping from her. Crying, she shouts that not she will let him deceive her again and seems very determined in this there. Suddenly a mushroom strange with a face appears in the place where she was pulling and she shouts. Wenming becomes desperate thinking that he will die with that again and Cici asks what is this? Soon the scene changes to the residence of the envoy of the north, showing a place very decorated and illuminated. Someone drinks something from a bowl and the sound of sips echoes through the environment, silent and tranquil. A man redhead comments that the buildings of the Dynastia Wu are chic, but the wine is very weak there. His companion says that not they are there to drink, and the redhead agrees, asking for him to relax a little. The redhead mentions that the Empress does just to the rumors and her force is immense, and he doubts of the success. The other man him reassures, saying that they not are the only ones that desire the end of her there. Curious, the redhead asks what he wants to say, and an energy dark emerges between them in the place. A smile sinister appears on a face enveloped by an aura somber and mysterious in that instant. A man with long hairs dark and a smile, evil emerges enveloped by an energy sinister. The bald man him recognizes as Mr. Wang, subordinate of the prince, and asks what him brings there then. Wang praises the speed in feeling him and says that the warriors of the grasslands are sharp as eagles. He came to remind that the prince prepared plans of assassination for the banquet and hopes that the Khan fulfills the promise. The bald man responds naturally and says that while the prince cedes the region, Yanyun the Khan will maintain the peace. With a smile, Huang says that it is exactly this that the prince intends and seems satisfied there. He continues that with everything agreed, the prince awaits anxiously for the show at the banquet, and the bald man agrees. Huang disappears in a smoke dark, leaving the two men alone again in that place then. The redhead comments that these dogs, Wu, are liars and asks if the Khan trusts in the prince. The bald man responds that the Khan already knows what he suspects, and they are plotting against Wu also. Back to the bath, Cizi asks what Wenming is hiding with him, and him faces suspicious. She him grabs and he asks why she him is holding suddenly and seems scared there. Wenming thinks desperate that if that is discovered everything will be finished and needs to improvise fast. He says that she not knows how it is difficult to scrub the back in the bath, and Cici him questions about this. To facilitate, he combined a towel with a stick of wood and calls of brush of bath self-scrubbing. Cici laughs and comments that he is good in inventing things for his convenience, and he says that it was inspiration. She then says that it is perfect because she was going to herself bathe, and asks for the brush borrowed with a look strange. Wenming becomes nervous and says that not is hygienic to share and not can make another in time now. Cici thinks that he is totally suspicious again, and combined with the mission of him from before there. Suddenly she seems to have an idea, brilliant, and her eyes themselves widen with a new perception. She concludes that the secret of the mission of him must be hidden in that brush, and Wenming himself gets terrified. Cici asks for him to deliver the brush for her to take bath, and him faces with much intensity there. Wenming becomes without knowing what to say, and Cici asks what he is hiding with that look. He thinks that not he has choice but to use the same trick again, and a light blue emerges in his fingers. Cici herself turns surprised with the light and seems not to understand what is happening in that moment. Suddenly Wenming uses his energy and blood spurts on the face of Cici, who shouts surprised with the attack. In close-up we see the face of the girl covered of blood while she shouts desperate with the pain there. The boy looks at his own arm bleeding while Cici is fallen on the floor, seeming unconscious. He thinks that still good that he has energy internal or not, he would manage to forge so much bleeding thus. With a smile he thinks that he deceived the crazy woman, but himself asks how much blood already he lost until now. Meanwhile the scene changes to the Casa Kenwua, showing an interior elegant and very tidy. A lady says for Ruyan to herself, hurry, because the Chief Shen asked specifically for her this night. The blonde guarantees to the mama that she will take care very well of the Chief Shen, who smiles satisfied with the answer. Ruyan offers a drink to the Chief Shen, and he with a smile says to allow that he return the gesture. Suddenly the arm of the girl begins to hurt intensely as if something were her pricking strongly. She then spurts the drink on the face of the Chief Shen, and the lady observes the scene, shocked and surprised. The older woman reprimands Ruyan, who herself defends, saying that the fault is all of that damned eunuch. The Chief Shen with the face wet asks how Ruyan knew that he liked of this type of thing, and they themselves get startled. Distant from there, Wenming sneezes, suddenly feeling a shiver run through his body in that instant. Cici is fallen, and the boy all wet feels cold and perceives that she left something fall on the floor. Curious, he catches a small flask red that the girl crazy carried with herself, and it analyzes. With a smile he thinks that the heaven not him abandoned, and with this he finally can turn the game. 3 days later the scene us takes to an imposing pagoda showing the grandeur of the construction. An official hurries the servants, saying that it is a day important for the Dynastia Wu and all run. The eunuch chief warns that who errs today himself will repent, and not he will take light with anyone there then. The eunuch chief observes Wenming, who is carrying a tray of food, and him faces with curiosity. The boy eats chicken and thinks that finally he eats something decent after being fed by force by Cici. The eunuch chief him calls of Xiao Wenzi, and Wenming himself gets scared with the appearance sudden of him there. He says to the godfather that he finished of tasting the dishes and will help with the banquet now even. The older man says that they are with few servants and asks for him to help first, and Wenming agrees. Wenming carries a tray while the eunuch chief him observes in silence, seeming thoughtful there. Secretly the eunuch chief places a liquid green in a bowl of soup full of fruits of the sea. 3 days before Wenming tries to finish the brush, before that Cici wakes up and she grumbles about blood. The eunuch chief orders to bring the dishes for Her Majesty and says that already he tested for poison then. With a look evil he thinks that the empire of the clan Wu will be his today and smiles with confidence. The scene then changes to the hall of banquets of the Palace Imperial, showing a place grandiose and luxurious. The guests of the north are seated, and the man redhead drinks something while his companion observes serious. An official is seated at the table with his servant beside, and both seem to be waiting for something. Suddenly the servant sees Wenming and exclaims the name of him, surprised and a little irritated with the vision. The servant says to the father that Wenming is there and wants to confront him in front of the empress now. The father him orders to shut the mouth because it is a banquet diplomatic and to save the problems for later. Wenming thinks that not he slept well because of Tao Cici and Lu Ruyan and rubs the eyes tired. Sees him observes and thinks that he plans to find the barbarians and promises to catch him and act this time. Suddenly Wenmeng feels a shiver run through his spine and becomes with an expression scared there. He himself turns rapidly but not sees nobody and becomes confused with the sensation strange that he felt. Wenming himself asks why he felt a shiver in the spine and if someone is thinking in him there. Royun appears in version chibi and says that the holiness is thinking in him and him accuses of loafing again. He responds that he is looking but still not found any clue about the such vein of the dragon. Irritated Royun shouts that not herself cares and he must find a clue today or she him will denounce. When Ming grumbles and himself asks if he offended a goddess in the life past, because the girls him pursue. He thinks that as he suspected she is making a move and Cece him observes from afar attentive. Cece thinks that he them deceived various times but this time she will expose his business treacherous. The Empress observes Cece who is following Wenmeng and seems a little thoughtful with the scene there. She thinks that Cece still is observing Wenmeng closely and herself asks if there is something between them. The eunuch chief informs to Her Majesty that everything is ready and the banquet can begin, and she agrees. An announcement is made that Her Majesty is seated and the banquet can begin and maids enter in the hall. The man Redhead laughs animated and says that finally it is time for the banquet because he was desiring the dishes. He eats a piece of chicken and praises the culinary Wu while the Minister of the Rites him observes shocked. The Minister of the Rites complains that they are brutes without manners, and his ex-superior agrees with him there. The bald man says to Beatar that it is time to follow the plan and cooperate, and he agrees eating chicken. He himself gets up and says that he heard speak of the talents of Wu and the Khan will present 3 enigmas today. The Empress, the Minister of the Rites, and Wenming observe the scene with expressions different and curious. An official asks about the enigmas barbarian, and another says that of course that they can answer them easily. The man Redhead asks if the ministers are confident and if they can begin with the enigmas there. The Empress with a look serious says to let them come because the Dynastia Wu not fears challenges. The man Bald laughs and asks for all to listen with attention to the enigma that he will propose now. He asks what is a mountain without stones, a river without water, a road empty, and a city without people. The officials themselves ask how a mountain cannot have stones and if such thing really exists there. An official shouts that it is obvious and the answer is a desert with dunes of sand dry and without life. The man Bald smiles and says that the answer is wrong, leaving the official surprised with that. Another official suggests that it is a forest, but the bald man denies again and the confusion increases. The officials themselves ask if such thing strange exists, and if the barbarians are only playing with them. Wenming observes the scene and thinks in silence while the others continue confused with the enigma. He himself remembers that it is a puzzle of childhood and if not he is mistaken, the answer is a map. Cece appears suddenly and says that she was about to say this and Wenmeng himself gets scared with her there. She him praises for being more smart than he seems and gives slaps on the head of him of form playful. The bald man comments that the reputation of the Dynastia Wu is exaggerated if not, they managed to solve an enigma simple. The redhead and the bald man exchange looks and the bald man repeats that the enigma is simple for them there. Sissy then shouts that the answer is a map and points with a smile confident for all to see. The officials become shocked and themselves ask who is this woman and who her let enter in the hall. The Empress looks at Cece with an expression of surprise and a little of curiosity in the look. The man bald clicks the tongue, irritated with the answer correct that was given by the girl there. He admits that she not is wrong and the answer really is a map and all become surprised. Cece says that the genius hit again and Wenming complains that it was the answer of him and thanks. Wenming thinks that now that she attracted the attention of all it is, the time perfect for him to escape. The man bald then grumbles irritated with the answer correct given by the girl there in the hall. He says to not become convinced because the Khan still has more 2 riddles prepared for them. Cece responds confident that they can come because she them will crush today and then will leave without words there. With a smile, the man bald hopes that she maintains this confidence for the next challenge, young lady. He then calls Beatar, and the redhead responds promptly that he understood the message of his companion. Patar shows a scroll to the girl and says that the second question is written right there. Sissy looks at the paper with an expression shocked, and a drop of sweat runs down her face. The scroll shows a challenge with letters strange, and Cece complains that they seem scribbles confused. The officials, curious themselves, approach of the girl wanting to see what is written on the paper mysterious. One of them says that they seem scribbles random, and another that never saw anything similar with that before. Another official finds the structure strange but says that he will study to try to discover the answer. The bald man laughs loud and inquires what there is of wrong and if the Dynastia Wu not manages to understand the question. The girl shouts irritated inquiring who said this and guarantees that she will decipher the challenge with certainty. He then says for her to proceed and thinks that it is a riddle exotic that they not will manage to solve. From afar Wenming observes the scene confused and himself asks what is happening with all there. He suddenly perceives that that is English and questions since when these barbarians know English. Ruyan emerges and inquires if he recognizes writings foreign, and the boy shouts in his mind, scared. She comments that it seems that he hides more secrets than she thought, and he denies, nervous. The man of the north provokes Cece to admit, if not, she manages, and she orders him to shut the mouth because she is thinking. The girl looks at the symbols and thinks that not even the old crazy woman taught that to her before. Suddenly, the girl perceives something and her eye shines with a new idea that emerged in her mind. She then shouts for Wenming to return there while he tries to flee sneakily from the confusion. The girl him pulls by the collar and asks where he thinks that is going, and he complains, scared. She says that he solved the first, then can solve the second, and he says that not is thus. The girl shouts for the Empress that Wenming can answer, and he denies desperately there. The son of the minister with anger says that a mere eunuch not has place to speak in that hall. The father of him then suggests that, as the eunuch himself volunteered him, they let try, and him they punish if he fails. Cece thinks that if Wenming himself allied with the barbarians, they him will help to answer to save Wu. The Empress then asks if Wenming really knows the answer, and he hesitates, nervous there. The rival laughs and says for him to himself kneel and implore for mercy, if not he knows, and the boy himself gets irritated. Wenming inquires what happens if he hits, and the rival promises to call him of grandfather if he manages. The minister alerts the son that he is being imprudent, but he guarantees that him he will humiliate there. The protagonist shows the scroll and says that it is a writing common in the regions western of the world. He reveals with a smile that itself calls English, and all become surprised with the information. The officials ask what is English, and the rival not believes that the boy really knows. Wenming thinks that still good that he studied English in the life past, or he would be screwed now even. He then begins to translate the riddle that is written on the scroll for all to hear. The boy explains that it is a puzzle of words and asks to read with attention the enigma. He points to the words on the scroll and reveals that the answer is the letter E in English. The officials themselves ask what type of answer is this, and accuse the boy of being only bluffing. The rival shouts for the Empress that Wenming is causing chaos and asks to punish him there. The man redhead becomes shocked and himself asks how a small eunuch could know of that all. The bald man confirms that he is correct, and the answer is E, leaving the rival surprised and confused. Wenming smiles convinced and thinks that the son of the family Wen not is so useless as he imagined. He then provokes the rival to call him correctly, and the other becomes trembling of anger there. The father of the rival says that he made the bet and now must accept the consequences of his acts. The young rival sweats cold and becomes with an expression of despair and humiliation before of all. Reluctantly, he calls Wenming of grandfather, and the protagonist responds with a smile of good boy. The father of the rival becomes furious and says that now the two can themselves lament together as grandson and son. The Empress observes Wenming and herself asks how many secrets he still is hiding from all. She eats a piece of meat, thoughtful, while observes the situation herself unfold in the hall. The eunuch chief smiles with satisfaction upon seeing the unfolding of the events and the success of the boy. Cece thinks that even with a riddle crazy he managed to solve, and Wu has dragons hidden. The man redhead says that the young man him impressed, and now remains only one riddle of the barbarians. He affirms that the question final will determine the future between the two nations there present. With a smile confident, the redhead himself approaches of the Empress with a box in the hands now. He says that he must present personally the last question for Her Majesty in that moment. The barbarian asks if he can present the question final for the Empress, and she him observes. The officials shout impudent with the approach of the man of the north of the figure of the Empress. They complain that a mere barbarian dares to himself approach of the Empress, and that not they have decorum. Cece points to Wenming and says that Her Majesty not needs to herself worry because he can solve. The boy, surprised, asks how he could steal the shine of the Empress, and she says that it is an honor. The ruler says that it is only a question and allows that he it present with calm there. Wenming thinks that something is strange and that all that situation seems very exaggerated too much. He himself asks why so much work for a simple riddle and observes the barbarian from back. Royan asks why that man has intention hostile, and the protagonist becomes confused with this. She explains that years wandering through the Jianghu make obvious for who already passed through much thing. The blonde says that the eyes of the barbarian shone with intention dangerous, and he should have noticed. Wenming becomes shocked upon perceiving the aura threatening coming from the man of the north in that instant. He himself asks if his dear is in danger, but Ruyan him reassures about the force of her. The blonde advises that he himself worry more with himself and not be caught in the fire crossed. The boy asks if she is worried, and Ruyan denies, saying that she fears not to find the vein of the dragon. The Empress says to see what type of riddle is that, and the barbarian shows the box. With a smile sinister, the man of the north asks for Her Majesty to give a look at the content. He opens the box, revealing a dagger, and parts towards the Empress with intentions clear. The barbarian shouts for the glory of the Khan and tries to attack the ruler with the dagger in hands. Wenming shouts, shocked, that that is an assassination attempt, and Ruyan says that already him had warned before. Cece shouts to protect Her Majesty, and all enter in panic with the attack sudden there. The man bald smiles and says that not he will let nobody interfere in that opportunity unique. He launches bombs of smoke in the hall and a great cloud of dust covers all the place. Wenming coughs because of the smoke and thinks that the barbarians came well prepared for that. The Empress faces the attack and asks if he really thinks that an assassination attempt cheap would work. Her eyes themselves widen in shock upon perceiving that something is wrong with her body suddenly. The barbarian manages to injure the arm of the Empress with the dagger and she retreats, surprised with that. The ruler jumps backwards, dodging the blow, but the man of the north her observes with a smile. She feels the head spin and the members become numb and perceives that something is very wrong. The redhead asks how she managed to dodge even in those conditions and criticizes the poison of the Lord. The eunuch chief smiles and says that she is a cultivator of 7th grade and not would be easy. The Empress looks at the arm injured and perceives that it was the food that her poisoned before. She faces Hai Gonggong and asks why he himself would ally with the barbarians after of all. The eunuch chief smiles and asks if she really him treated well, and the minister of the rites coughs.
Il s'est retrouvé dans un monde martial et est devenu le fiancé de la puissante impératrice. Rêvant d'une vie paisible à ses côtés, il mise tout sur cette union, mais il finit par provoquer involontairement la colère de l'impératrice. Et pour tester sa fidélité, l'impératrice échafaude alors un curieux plan. Elle envoie sa meilleure amie pour le séduire. Va-t-il résister? Et l'impératrice, veut-elle vraiment qu'il échoue ou est-elle simplement confuse? N'oubliez pas d'aimer et de vous abonner si cela vous plaît.
The barbarian says to stop talking and finish with her, and the eunuch agrees irritated. The two traitors advance against the Empress, and she then calls of traitors with anger there. The ruler fights bravely against the two men but is clearly in disadvantage now. The eunuch chief says for her to spare forces because how much more energy circulates more fast the poison axe. The Empress feels difficulty to breathe and thinks that not she will endure much time thus. She continues fighting with all her forces, but the poison her weakens each time more. The barbarian becomes surprised and asks how she still is fighting even being poisoned. He then shouts for her to receive the next blow and advances with the dagger ready to attack. Wenming himself asks if his small Empress is really poisoned and if he will stay there stopped. He clenches the fists, determined to act and not let that nothing happen with her there. Suddenly, the rival of Wenming emerges and catches the needle that was going to hit the Empress in the air. He says that gas poisonous and needles not are nothing for him because he has immunity and skill. The young man affirms that if they want to hurt Her Majesty, they will have to pass through him. Jia Zhendao. Before that he could finish the phrase, he takes a punch powerful in the face and is thrown far. The barbarian laughs and says that the weaklings of the Dynastia Wu are only bark but not bite of truth. He then catches the dagger from the floor ready to attack the Empress again without hesitating. With a smile evil, the man of the north says that now is the turn of her and her faces coldly. Suddenly CZ emerges and shouts traitors advancing against the barbarian with fury in the eyes. She delivers a kick powerful in the face of the man of the north and him sends far away from there. The eunuch chief observes the girl and says that she is herself overestimating too much in that fight. He tries to grab Cece but she dodges skillfully from the attack of the eunuch with agility. The girl manages to herself get rid of the grip of the eunuch, but he smiles with malice at her. Suddenly CZ perceives an energy dart coming from the hand of the eunuch and becomes surprised. The eunuch chief her hits with a blow powerful and she is thrown far with the impact strong. Ceci spits blood and is thrown against the wall with the force of the attack of the eunuch. When Ming observes the scene, shocked with the force sudden demonstrated by the eunuch chief there. The eunuch laughs and says that he had a small advance recently and Cece him faces injured. The Empress thinks that not she can herself protect, and if Cece stays there she will die for nothing. The Empress thinks that she needs to give all of herself to gain time for the others to escape from there. She uses a technique to seal the poison in her body and an aura purple her involves now. The ruler releases a wave of energy powerful that pushes away the enemies and creates an opening. She says that she sealed the poison by force but not it will last much, and orders Cece to call the guards. The girl herself worries with Her Majesty but she says that it is an order and not there is time for, but the Empress with an expression serious says that it is an order and she must obey without questioning. She then looks at Wenming and asks for Cece to take him along with her far away from there. The two young people themselves face surprised with the order sudden of the Empress in that moment. The ruler says that him she prejudiced of various ways and now only wants that he leave alive. Cece agrees reluctantly and faces Wenming with an expression determined and serious there. She grabs the arm of the boy and says for him to come with her immediately to flee from there. The man bald emerges and orders them to stop right there and them faces with a look threatening. He says that not he will let that they call for help and Cece clicks the tongue irritated with him. The girl thinks that not she manages to win that guy because he is very strong for her now. Suddenly the Empress emerges from behind the bald man and him attacks with a blow surprise there. She hits a kick powerful in the man of the north and him sends flying far with the impact. The ruler says that now is the chance of them and orders Cece to go away with Wenming from there. Cece shouts for Wenming to run with her but he seems hesitant in leaving the Empress. He says that she can deal with the guards alone because he has something more to do there. The girl him calls of idiot and says that if he wants to die, that it be, but she will flee. The two men advance against the Empress, but she herself prepares to face them with determination. Wenming observes the fight and himself refuses to let his small Empress be defeated in that form. He clenches the fists and decides that not he can permit that she be eliminated thus so easily. The boy asks help to Liu Ruyan to defeat the eunuch and the barbarian, but she questions. He explains that if she dies, the empire will fall in chaos and they never will find the vein of the dragon. Wenming suggests that if they help her, they will have pass free in the palace and the chance to look for the vein. Ruyan denies that they are feelings for her and says that not is ridiculous and he not should himself deceive. She agrees in helping only for the vein of the dragon, and Wenming thanks with a smile there. The traitors mock of the Empress and say that she is worn out and want to see how much she endures. The ruler shouts that even if she dies, she will take the two along with her with fury in the eyes. She releases a wave of energy, purple powerful, that hits the two men with force total. The barbarian is hit in full and himself asks what type of monster she is to have so much power. The Empress coughs blood exhausted after the attack but managed to injure gravely the enemy. The eunuch chief laughs and says that Her Majesty is an artist, martial, powerful, and he her admires. He reveals that if not he had reached a new realm, not he would have chance against her there. The Empress perceives the pressure and herself asks if he also is of 9th level like her. The eunuch tears the clothes and says that to be eunuch is temporary and he will recover everything. He shouts that when he masters the technique, the throne will be his, and laughs madly with his plans. Suddenly a voice asks if an eunuch dead dreams in being emperor, and the eunuch himself gets scared. A fist enveloped in flames, blue emerges ready to attack the eunuch chief with force total. Wenming emerges and hits a punch powerful in the face of the eunuch chief, shouting for him to die.